Time to run it all. I wake up. Yeah. I wake up, flex, thumb down now. Check, no drip, this wet. Tell them run it up. No sleep, no rest. Might crash, might wreck, but first I stretch. Tell them run it up. I wake up, flex, thumb down now. Check, no drip, this wet. Tell them run it up. No sleep, no rest. Might crash, might wreck, but first I stretch. Tell them run it up. 9 out of 10 roll through my hands, I'm by my lonely. Turned to a savage, now my baby wants to hold me. I love my fans, don't need no friends, I got my homies.
In the morning, you got me up, all cause you need to talk. To 4 in the evening, wanna break up, say that you've had enough. I'm tired of talking, again and again, argue about everything. You are my darling, this kiss and make up, I know you wanna touch. You call me every night, call me every day, I just wanna get you alone now. Trust me when I say, we gon' be okay, we just gotta boom bada boom ba. I don't wanna fight, you know that I'm right. Baby, let me talk to your body. We gon' be okay, hear me when I say.
Who told you that you couldn't rise from the morass of your current situation? Who told you that you had to be a slave to the pain of your past? Who told you that you had to settle for mediocrity in this current culture called America? Who told you that you couldn't change your mind? Talk to me. Now's the time for empowerment. And I'm not the Reverend Knight. I'm the coach of Clinician.
addicted to you. All of my attention I've been giving to you. Caught up in my feelings, I got feelings for you. Caught up in my feelings, I got feelings for you. On my mind, I can't lie. On my mind, I can't lie. Pull you down till you dry. Pull you down till you dry. All the time, ease my mind. All the time, ease my mind. I know that you're dangerous, I'm addicted to you. I might rent the Lambo and go drive it like it's stolen. I've been living wild, I'm just going through the motions. Stumbling out the Uber, grab my hand, gave me the notion. Swimming in your water, but it feels just like the ocean. I can't lie, I've really been addicted to you. All of my attention I've been giving to you. Caught up in my feelings, I got feelings for you. Caught up in my feelings, I got feelings for you. On my mind, I can't lie. On my mind, I can't lie. Pull you down till you dry. Pull you down till you dry. All the ease my mind. All the time, ease my mind.
All right, guys, we're about to start a conversation, and we're going to talk about the dangers of undiagnosed madness. I decided to do this show because mental illness is prevalent not only in the American fabric, but mental illness is also very seen in the black community. And the issue with mental illness in the black community is that many times it goes undiagnosed. We don't want to talk about it. And some of you guys have been dating women with undiagnosed pathologies, and some of you guys that are listening are dealing with undiagnosed pathologies. And you can't have what's called a very kosher in community or environment if you're dealing with pathologies from your past that you have not more or less dealt with. So we're going to talk about it on tonight, guys. But before we talk about it, I'm going to give you guys a forerunner to what's going on with the show because I forgot to run this clip. So this is going to be the prelude to the show. I want you guys to get your notes and pens and paper ready, and we're going to talk about it. Get ready. Diagnosed mental illness. Has Tasha K caused Cardi B to be in a state of distress, which in essence has caused her to have an adjustment disorder? We're going to explore the dynamics on how undiagnosed mental illness can cause distress to others if we don't do the proper work to get those things in check. If you guys didn't know, here recently, Tasha K was more or less indicted for her malfeasance concerning Cardi B. And the lead attorney did a great job examining it, but also talking to the guy by the name of Myron on the intricacies of what could go on in the future concerning Tasha K. It appears that many women are in the same state as Tasha K, as they have a very toxic ego that needs to be checked. But because we live in a society where many men tell women what they want to hear instead of telling them the truth, those negative pathologies continue to permeate because we don't have the proper infrastructure to deal with them. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this show as I bring it to you live from the greatest state in the Union, the Tar Heel State. And I need you guys to remember this, as there are 7 steps that a man must go do for male optimization. If it ain't 7, it ain't kosher. If it ain't kosher, it ain't right. Is Tasha K causing Cardi B distress? You decide. All right, guys, so back to topic. We're going to be talking about a myriad of issues on today, and it appears that Tasha K has been dealing with some unconscious pathologies that she's more or less impacted on Cardi B. And it also appears that Cardi B could be dealing with an adjustment disorder, something that's temporary and many times lasts only up to 6 months. But the fact that Cardi B has been in a state of distress, it could appear that Cardi B could be dealing with chronic trauma or chronic post-traumatic stress disorder. Because chronic is more severe than acute. So we're going to have a good conversation, guys. We're going to talk about it because, once again, we can't have a strong society and or community until we deal with the mind. Some of you men are dealing with women that have more or less imbued their not negative and toxic ego towards you. And some of you women are dealing with men that have more or less been in those states of predicament as well. So we're going to have a very powerful conversation, guys. And I want you guys to get your pen and your paper ready because these conversations are very important if we're going to have a strong and a vibrant community. So the question remains, did Tasha K cause Cardi B distress? Did Tasha K cause Cardi B distress? Have you guys been in situations or predicaments where the women that you're dealing with, have they caused you distress? We talked about the primitive ego of Tasha K, and I did a show in the past talking about the primitive ego. And 2 of the negative impacts of the ego can be repression. It can also be something called regression. Repression is when you're not aware of those things that's been going on in your head due to trauma. And when it comes up, you just press it down. You just keep repressing it because you don't want to deal with it. But regression is when you're not moving forward in your psychosocial stage of development, and instead of moving forward, you are regressing. And it appears that Tasha K, even though she's a grown woman, she could have some more or less regressive techniques or regressive mindsets as it relates to her and her pathologies. And see, guys, this is the issue that we're dealing with in our community. Mental illness is very prevalent. Some of it is vicarious trauma that's not been dealt with. It needs more salient means like family therapy to help them more or less uncover the things that they've dealt with from the past. Some of our men and women are dealing with molestation that has not more or less been dealt with. And we're carrying those pathologies into relationships, and we're wondering why our relationships often are not stable. We're going to deal with it, guys, because until we get the mind right, we can't get the body right. Until we get the body right, we can't get the community right. Until we get the community right, we can't get the nation right. And Tasha K appears to be dealing with undiagnosed mental illness from her past. Because Tasha K has been like a barracuda when it comes down to her negative comments that have more or less been elicited not only to Cardi B, but also famously to the lead attorney. She did something that was very negative or said negative things towards him. And see, the caveat is this, guys, the bully always like to bully until the bully get hit in the mouth. And, Tasha K is a young woman that was in special education. She failed the 9th grade 3 times, to my knowledge. And, who's to say that Tasha K is not dealing with some projection? Who's to say that Tasha K is not dealing with a low self-esteem? Because until we get these things under check, until we deal with the issues that are causing us to have the state in the peril that we're having, we're not going to have a very vibrant community in the future. But Tasha K and that primitive ego, guys, is something that many of you deal with. Many of you are very regressed in your relationships as it relates to women. You're very regressed as it relates to how you see yourself. Your image is very important if you're going to be successful in the future, men. And many times we don't have the proper wherewithal to know what our image is about because we have not more or less seen power executed at a very high level in our homes. Many men that are listening are regressive because you've never seen masculine authority. You've never seen masculine power. And because of that regression, some of you men are continuing to repress some of the unconscious thoughts from your past that's caused you to be in a traumatic state. But when you think about Tasha K appears to have some unresolved issues. And you guys know, and I know, that Tasha K also have had issues with men of color. And see, a lot of times, guys, I told you there are 7 steps that a man must go through in order to become optimized, and family is one of those 7 steps. And when a person is not getting their needs met, when a person is not getting the things that are necessary to help them become the best versions of themselves met, they continue to go in that negative downward spiral, that's causing them to be in a state of distress, pain, anger, and grief. But it can also be argued, guys, that Tasha K has a very fragile ego. And I told you guys the ego can be good or bad. The ego can be between being aware of what you're doing. It can be primitive, or it can be more or less pro as it relates to morality. But the question remains this: why is Tasha K doing the things that she's doing? Why is she in a very precarious state as it relates to what's going on with her mind? A fragile ego, many times, guys, can lead to what's called personality disorders. Many people dealing with narcissistic personality disorders have very fragile egos from their past. That ego is fragile because they overcompensate to make themselves feel good. They love to be in the spotlight. There are many people that on YouTube are what I call, the Wizard of Oz. They have personas behind avatars that make them feel good about themselves because they have a fragile ego. And when they get fans, those fans more or less feed that narcissistic supply. And a narcissistic supply is the attention that many need in order to feel good about themselves because they have a very fragile ego, very fragile. And that's why on the internet, many people that were more or less broken can be great great, be in the spotlight, and it makes them feel good about themselves because when they look in the mirror, they really have a very fragile ego, and they don't feel good about themselves because in the back of their mind, they know they're not worthy of the adulation. But Tasha K has been doing some things towards Cardi B, which appears to be displaced aggression. And displaced aggression is when a person is angry, when they project their anger towards a target, even though the target shouldn't be the place of their anger. Displaced aggression many times is more or less part of what's called unresolved grief. Part of it's unresolved pain. Part of it's unresolved trauma. And some of you men and women were the recipients of displaced aggression, meaning they take their anger and their pain and they displace it to the people that it should have more or less been displaced to. But the question remains, is Tasha K still in a regressive state? Is Tasha K dealing with some of the things from her past that she have not got over? Is Tasha K projecting anger towards men of color because perhaps she dealt with it from the vicarious trauma that her mother went through, and she heard her mother more or less berate men of color, and Tasha K began to overgeneralize and assert and assume that all men of color aren't ish. And see, guys, that's overgeneralization when you take 100% of the men in your population and you assert that those men aren't worth anything. And that appears to what have happened with Tasha K, to say the least. Now, to the 16 that are watching, guys, get the likes up because this is going to be a great show on today. Get the likes up. Share the content. Get the likes up and share the content. If you have not donated, donate the Cash App, $7Smalls. Because we want to talk about the pathologies of Tasha K. We want to talk about why Tasha K is doing the things that she's doing. We want to talk about, have some of you men been dealing with women similar to Tasha K as well? Because hell has no fury like a woman that's been scorned. And the question also remains, guys, is should Tasha K had taken the L as it relates to Cardi B, or did she let her ego get the best of her? Did Tasha K let that syntonic ego get the best of her, which means that Tasha K was in a state of delusion? So the projection towards black men, once again, guys, many times is tied to vicarious trauma. And that vicarious trauma many times does not benefit her, nor does it benefit the people in her circle. It actually hurts her. And so when we don't get the proper treatment that's more or less tied to the pain of our past, we continue to go on that downward spiral that can be very deleterious to us long term. And that's why it's so important for women and men to get the help that they need. Many times, guys, some of the women that you're dealing with are projecting their pain because of what they went through in their childhood. And also, many times, the women that are scorned still continue to carry that pain into their young adult life. So as I'm reading the comments, guys, get the likes up. Shout out to Top Gun. Shout out to Life Coach. He said, I know this would be another great show. Thank you, brother. Shout out to Top Gun again. He's in adjustment disorder. This is going to be a great show, right? Because adjustment disorders, guys, are not true mental illness. It is not true mental illness. It's just a transition issue that many are going through. But the question remains is, did Cardi B more or less project it? Tasha K put Cardi B in a predicament where she's dealing with an adjustment disorder with anxiety and depression. Because when I play the clip by the lead attorney, we're going to break it down. And before I even saw this clip by the lead attorney, I more or less projected that Tasha K was more or less being part of what's called cyberbullying. And cyberbullying is when you are bullying people on the internet, which in essence causes them depression and distress, which is synonymous to an adjustment disorder. And so an adjustment disorder is something that can be dealt with brief solution therapy. It's very brief. But we don't know how what Tasha K has done to Cardi B is going to impact her long term. Some will say that Cardi B herself has been a woman or a barracuda as it relates to her behavior with drugging men and saying very defamatory things towards others. But Tasha K is very wicked with her mouth. She's very vicious. And the fact that she's very vicious and very toxic with her mouth speaks volumes. So we're going to talk about it, guys, and we're going to ask ourselves the question, why is Tasha K continue to do the things that she's doing? Why is Tasha K causing the distress that she's giving? And Top Gun, I think I'm going to put you in as a moderator, boy, or Top Gun or Cool Gent. I need a moderator. Some of the moderators might be out on the day, and that's cool. Gail and Tim normally pop in, but it's cool they're not here. But we got to have this discussion, guys, because there are a lot of delusional people running around with what's called a syntonic ego. A syntonic ego that's very regressive. A syntonic ego that thinks that what they're doing is very normal. And see, guys, and ladies and gentlemen, you know, we live in a world where dysfunction is so normalized that when people begin to tell the truth and when people begin to speak the truth to power, we don't understand it because we're not used to it. Some of you guys have been the recipients of very dysfunctional families. You know, some of you guys are the victims of abuse, men and women, molestation. And, you know, your ego is very satanic because you think that it's normal. But if you think that Tasha K calls Cardi B to be in a mental state of distress, I want you guys to hit 1. If you feel that Cardi B is faking it, I want you guys to hit 2. And we're going to talk about it. Because it's important that we have these conversations. It's important that we have these conversations because there's a lot of undiagnosed mental illness in the black community. So give me a minute, guys, while Top Gun, I haven't forgot you either, brother. I'll get you at some point. But I'm going to give Cool Jen in the moderate. For now, I got to find your URL so we can continue to have this discussion because it's very important. It is very important that we have these discussions, guys. Very important. So what say you? What say you? Because many feel one, right? Cool Gent said both are toxic. Top Gun said adjustment disorder is more common than people know, right? Jenny Morena said 1. Impressive vibes. I think Cardi has tough skin, but she's truly affected by Tasha K because of the platform she has, right? And the lies she convinced people that were true. So 1, right? Dr. O said that mental illness is rampant in our community. Mental illnesses are rampant in the community. I agree. And once again, guys, share this content with everyone. Please share the content because when you share the content, you help the channel grow. I just did a great collaboration with Chantel Simone last night, and it was a great show, guys. But the fact remains is that it's something that's very rampant in our communities, and I think the audience is right that Tasha K was greatly impacted by Cardi B was greatly impacted by what Tasha K said and did because it appears, guys, that toxicity is the norm of the day. It appears that being toxic is normal and people tend to celebrate toxic behaviors. And when good women begin to speak out, when good men begin to speak out on the toxic men and women, those people are shamed or more or less put to silence. And listen, these platforms can be very toxic. There's some very toxic people sometime on these platforms. They will assassinate your character. Many times they will dox you, and they will probably more or less assault your family. And they'll say things about you and your family that you know is not true. But they do it as a way to get under your skin, or they do it as a way to try to hurt you in a negative way. And so it's important for us to have these conversations, guys, as I said earlier, if we're going to get the outcomes that we need long-term for a successful community. Dr. O said that Tasha K is extremely reckless. She must run her husband if she's married. I'm convinced that Tasha K is the man in her home. No husband will allow his wife to publicly be this reckless without advising her to be quiet. I totally agree with you 100%. And there are a lot of men, because they were raised in homes where they never saw masculine authority or more or less part of a masculine community, that let their women run their mouths like Tasha K. Tasha K is very toxic. And according to the latest, it appears that Tasha K could be losing this lawsuit. And we're going to talk about it, guys. Because there are some that are listening that want to see a very vibrant community. They are hoping that we get back to the days of yesterday. But many people feel that we will never get back to the points that we were like in the past because the culture is broken, the culture is toxic, and the culture does not more or less have the proper standards for us to be vibrant, but also to be viable. And because of that, many are beginning to shut down. Many are beginning to say enough is enough. Many guys are beginning to say, regardless of what we do, they're agent provocateurs that more or less prevent us from more or less being the men in our community. So many men are saying, you know what? I'm just going to chill. I'm going to let it do what it do, because the more we try to speak out and speak truth to power, the more issues that we have. So once again, guys, get the likes up. If you have not donated, donate to Cash Out $7 Smalls. Thank you guys for being so supportive in the past. You guys have done awesome on Saturday night. I really appreciate it. It was a good show that I had with Guapo as we talked about the toxic ego. And then we also talked about the ego and the disenfranchisement of the brotherhood. But watch this. There's also reckless egos associated with women. And so when women don't hold other women accountable, a lot of times the ego as relates to men is about power, and it causes dissemination. But with women, it can be more or less about groups, and those groups tend to attack other women that more or less try to be the clarion callers for truth. And see, these conversations are important, guys, because we need men and women speaking out, speaking truth to power, being unapologetic in their position, and being willing to deal with what comes, because our ancestors would have never been great if they did not fight white supremacy. If they were more or less quiet about some of the things that were happening, they themselves would have never been liberated. And we don't know how long, guys, this culture is going to last, but we do know that we're living in very precarious times, because the behaviors that are more or less personified by Tasha K is deplorable. Now, let's ask ourselves the question as well. Could Tasha K be targeting Cardi B because Cardi B is light-skinned? Could Tasha K be dealing with colorism? If you look at Tasha K based on the thing that I have, Tasha K is a dark-skinned woman. And could it be argued that Tasha K is projecting her anger towards Cardi B because Tasha K is dark-skinned? We talk about colorism all the time. Some feel that light-skinned women look down on darker-skinned women. But then some feel that darker-skinned women automatically have a negative vibe about themselves because they have a low self-esteem based on what they went through in their childhood. Could Tasha K be projecting her anger towards Tasha K because of colorism? And that could be part of the unconscious pathology that Tasha K is dealing with. Some of you guys are in relationships where some of our women are projecting because they're dealing with how they feel. And that's why we got to continue to have these discussions, because the question remains, is colorism really real? Is Tasha K more or less projecting that because of her past? Is Tasha K feeling good about herself because Tasha K knows that her ego is very small? Does Tasha K realize that perhaps she's really just the Wizard of Oz? Someone behind an avatar, someone behind a computer screen, but somebody that is visibly broken. And that she let her ego get the best of her as it relates to Cardi B. Displaced aggression, guys. And some of you guys have seen it. Some of you women have seen it. But since this channel is dedicated mostly towards men, is that when you remind her of her ex or her past, and she'll displace that aggression towards you. Could it be that Tasha K is displacing her aggression towards Cardi B because she remembered the times when she failed the 9th grade 3 times, that there were girls that were prettier than her that laughed at her or picked on her? I don't know. I'm just asking the question. But if that is the case, then what do we do about it? Because we got a lot of walking time bombs in these communities. We got a lot of folks that are still dealing with a regressive ego. We got a lot of people that are dealing with issues that are more or less related to vicarious trauma. Trauma that has not more or less been eradicated because we don't more or less pontificate or talk about the importance of mental wellness in our communities because we tend to rely on spirituality. And spirituality is nothing wrong with spirituality because spirituality is part of it. But it's not all of it. We need more than that because in the clinical world, we call it the bio, which is the body, the psycho, which is the mind, the social, which is the environment, and the spiritual. All four elements must be in synchronization in order to have what's called optimization. And so when we fall back on the wayside and we don't have all those things in its proper place, then you continue to have the issues that you're having now. Shout out to Bodacious Lady. She said that the culture, you are breaking it down in the right direct. Every beautiful woman that Tasha K comes across, she becomes threatened. Right. She is broken to the depth of Tasha K's soul. No doubt, sis. I agree with that. AP Queen said, Leo Queen said, if she presented herself as that in her videos, then yes. Right. And Mr. Rucker said, who cares about these women feelings? That's funny. But right. You're right, Bodacious Lady. I agree with you 100%. I think Tasha K is a barracuda that's dealing with unresolved pain and grief. She's dealing with unresolved issues from her past. She's dealing with issues from her formative years as it relates to her psychosocial stages of development. And, you know, there was a group in the past, if you guys are Gen Xers, you remember a group called Arrested Development. And Tasha K development appears to be arrested. And until Tasha K do the shallow work, get with a very competent therapist that can help her uncover some of her pathologies, then Tasha K is going to continue to go on these negative torments as it appears that she is going to lose this case, and it appears that she's going to be dealt with because of her negative ill repute towards Cardi B. And the things that she said about Cardi B, guys, is similar to the viral and the very toxic nature that we continue to see in our society and in our communities. And it's very sad. It's very sad because we can't have a vibrant community if we have unresolved issues from our past. Now, to the third group that are listening, guys, get the likes up, please. Get the likes up. If you have not shared to the show, please share the content. Thank you, Q Gent, for sharing. Also, guys, hit the Cash App $7 Smalls. And also, if you have not donated to the channel, please donate to the channel as these shows are time consuming. But because I love what I do, guys, as I've said in the past, I continue to work hard behind the scenes to give you guys great content that can help give you the kind of clarity that you need to deal with the issues that you have not dealt with in a very synchronous way. So once again, can Tasha K be targeting Cardi B because of unresolved issues? And I would say more than likely, yes, sir. Is Tasha K really just the Wizard of Oz? And any of you guys know anything about the Wizard of Oz, thank you, Gail, for coming in, dear. I appreciate it. If any of you guys know anything about the Wizard of Oz, the Wizard of Oz was a person, guys, that, in the forefront, he was projected to be greater and bigger. But when you got the Wizard of Oz behind the scene, he was really just a little small, fragile, broken man. And so many people in these YouTube spaces project that they are great and strong. But in actuality, because they have a platform, they have a chance to get that narcissistic supply taken care of because of personality disorders like narcissistic personality disorder. But some of them are actually dealing with borderline personality disorders. And so the reason why these conversations are important is because we wonder why people do the things that they do. As I said, when you think about the ill repute that Tasha K has more or less elicited towards Cardi B, but the time when she was very disrespectful to the lead attorney, it just makes you wonder why these behaviors go unchecked. And when good women try to, check negative and toxic behaviors, they call them pick-me's, they call them mammies. They say things to the good sisters that are more or less trying to correct it. And because it's such a small remnant of women that are speaking out, it makes it very hard to swim upstream. It makes it very hard to swim upstream. Bodacious lady said, I cannot speak for the men, but I know the women are not doing their inner self soul work, which is a daily activity. The work is much more than putting on your fine clothes, makeup, and designer bag. Yes, ma'am, I agree with you 100%. It's just a facade. It's just a veneer to cover the pain. It's a facade, and it is a veneer to cover the pain that the person is dealing with. And that's why we got to have these conversations, because, see, fathers give their daughters the covering that they need, but also fathers help build their girls' self-esteem. Some of these young ladies are overcompensating. Many people in YouTube overcompensate for a fragile ego that they had in their formative years. And YouTube gives them the proper wherewithal to project something that they could never project in the real world. You know, YouTube has been more or less like a virtual reality where they can be sometimes avatars or they can be big personalities with platforms that they never really would have gotten maybe 40, 50, 60 years ago. And, you know, it's important and it's sad because we need to have these conversations, because many of you guys are marrying women that have more or less got unresolved mental illness. You're dating women with unresolved mental illness. She's blaming you for the pain that was solicited or unsolicited to her by bad relationships, and sometimes by her father, and sometimes the men in her life. But men on the flip side are doing the same thing. Some of you men were molested by other women. You were more or less touched as children. You guys are dealing with a lot of pain that's been unresolved. Some of you guys got anger issues and negative projections towards women because of what you went through, and because many times we don't have the facilitation of allowing men to speak out, then they continue to internalize those pathologies on an ongoing basis. So we're going to have a conversation, guys, because this conversation is important. It's very important, and we're going to get the outcomes that we need. And shout out again to Gail. Thank you, dear, for popping in. I appreciate it. I know everybody's relaxing on this Martin Luther King holiday, but we need to have the conversation, because the conversation is very important. If we're going to get the outcomes to a more vibrant but also vital community. So once again, these conversations are very, 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 very important. But in the meantime, what I'm going to do, guys, I'm going to run the clip by the lead attorney where he was talking to the guy named Myron about some of the issues that are going on. And once again, guys, if you're not donate to the channel. Hold tight. Let me put this banner on real quick. I hope you guys are having a good Martin Luther King birthday, because men, it's time to be liberated. It's time to be liberated. And the way you liberate yourself and the way you liberate your mind is through self-awareness. So the question remains, is Cardi B dealing with mental distress because of Tasha K? And I would say yes. She's dealing with mental distress because of Tasha K. And I would say yes. And some of you brothers are dealing with mental distress because of unresolved issues with the women that you're dealing with as well. So guys, once again, let's have the conversation. And Gail, thank you as we continue this conversation about what's causing Cardi B to be in a state of distress. What's causing Cardi B to be sad? What's causing Cardi B to be frustrated? Some think that Cardi B is faking it. Some think that Cardi B should have tougher skin. Should Cardi B have tougher skin? Or is Tasha K really a barracuda? Somebody that's very vicious with her mouth. And some of you ladies have dealt with, and men have been around women like Tasha K that's very bitter, very vitriolic, and very negative. So I'm about to play the clip, guys. But in the meantime, I'm going to run this commercial, and please share the content, guys. And if you have not donated, donate. So I'm going to run the commercial real quick, and then we're going to get right into it with the clip. Hold tight.
Are you a victim of brokenness and despair? A broken man is a hopeless man, and a hopeless man is a very dangerous man.
Many times, many of you young men that are listening come from homes that are very toxic and very dysfunctional. And because of that, many of you have deferred your power in many ways to the point it's led over into your social life and many times led over into your relationships. If you guys are dealing with mental health pathologies, conscious and unconscious, come see me at kosherclinician@gmail.com. That's kosherclinician@gmail.com. It's important that you deal with your mental health in order to be a better person for yourself, your loved ones, and also your community. But because mental health is often stigmatized, many of you often suffer in silence. Don't be a victim in silence. And see me once again at kosherclinician@gmail.com. And I need you guys to remember this. If it ain't 7, it ain't kosher. If it ain't kosher, it ain't right. There are 7 steps that a man must go through in order to become an optimized male. And male mental health is one of those elements that's paramount to the functioning of a man. Be well. All right, guys, so I'm going to break this thing down. I'm going to break it down. I'm going to break this diatribe that the lead attorney did with the guy Myron. And we're going to have a collaboration because this is going to be very important. Shout out to the lead attorney, as he always brings clarity from the legal perspective. Shout out to that brother.
All right. Shout out to MTR. So without further ado, all right, let's bring up my man, Mr. Dennis Byron in the house. How are you doing?
Good afternoon. Good evening, counselor. How are you?
I am doing well. I'm doing well. I know you don't have much time, but I really do want to thank you for taking the time to come on. There have been very few people that have covered this case like you have, and almost none with kind of the journalistic background and the expertise that you have. Your coverage of this kind of complicated trial has been amazing. So just to start off, can you tell the people a little bit about your background?
Well, I started in photojournalism in 1989. I went on to start get into print journalism. I've read for some of the biggest publications, hip hop publications, as well as my publication. I'm also the Atlanta stringer for TMZ. So my coverage it's been, I guess, all over the country, all over the world. You know, when you get the Sun covering or the Daily Mail covering it, that's international.
Absolutely.
And a lot of my career has been covering trials, criminal trials, state trials, federal criminal trials. I covered probably 2 to 3 civil trials, but this is the first trial of its kind that I've covered that involved, it's not the First Amendment, but defamation, and the elements that support the complaint by Miss Cardi B. So yes. I find myself in this case, and it's been a roller coaster of.
So you want to know where to invest $1,000 right now? Well, forget about stocks, real estate, or cryptocurrency.
Of information and exchanging, and it's just. Watching the way this case is going is just extraordinary.
Absolutely. So let's kind of get into it. Kind of what are at the very beginning, what are the claims that Cardi B is saying? She's the plaintiff, right? She's the one that's filed this case, and she's saying, listen, I am being damaged in certain ways by the actions of Tasha K. What is Cardi B complaining about?
The complaint is defamation of character, invasion of privacy, and slander. And I think it's a few other claims. But for the most part, I like to categorize it as a high case of cyberbullying.
Cyberbullying, yes.
I call it cyberbullying. And it's bordering for me onto organized crime, in that you're making a profit by bullying someone, and under the guise of, well, I'm just a blogger, entertainment blogger. But what I noticed when the defense was making their opening argument, they referenced R. Kelly, and I couldn't understand why they would reference R. Kelly. And the only nexus I saw with Tasha K and R. Kelly is they both were in federal court. They're both in federal court, and they both are defendants.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah, it doesn't have a strong connection. Okay, so we've got defamation, we've got invasion of privacy. Now
and see, guys, that's what happens to people that have narcissistic traits. They tend to exude behaviors like Tasha K. They become very defamatory in nature. They more or less project their anger, and they also more or less lie. And many times they'll tell half truth to more or less create salacious gossip that can be more or less damaging to a person. And so people with narcissistic traits are synonymous to the people that you see in Tasha K. And you hear what the man Myron is saying on the lead attorney. Once again, shout out to those guys. And, with the celebrity gossip and also with the celebrity news, what you guys are seeing is women like Tasha K begin to more or less pontificate that behavior on a regular basis. And, it's unfortunate, guys, because we tend to see it more often than not. And it's unfortunate. Shout out to Asia for the $5 cash app. Thank you, dear. I appreciate that. Keep listening.
We're kind of equating this to cyberbullying. Most of the times when you think of cyberbullying, you think of something that's intentional. Do you think that Tasha K's statements, do you think they were intentionally false? Or do you think they were just kind of mistakes, like she didn't know, these were honest mistakes that, we can all make if we're reporting on something?
Well, by her own admission, they were intentional. She stated in open court that she did it. She knew that what she was doing was wrong. She knew that the claims that she were making about her having herpes, about her placing a beer bottle, Cardi placing a beer bottle in her vagina, was false, and she did it for profit.
Now, when Cardi B kind of found out about this, did she just immediately go to the courts, or did she try to resolve it? Was there any testimony about any cease and desist letters?
Well, initially what happened was Tasha K was promoting a video interview she did with Star Marie Jones, and she had did a promo for the video, and Cardi got wind of the video, and she sent her she sent a comment on her page saying that these claims are false. She doesn't know the girl. She doesn't know the girl like the way this girl's representing, and that Tasha K reached out to her and asked her, Cardi reached out to Tasha K on a DM and said, this stuff is false. So then Tasha K said, come onto my platform and clear it up. And Cardi said during examination by her attorney that she wasn't going on the platform. One, her management wouldn't let her do it. And two, it would have made the story bigger. So she humbly declined being on the platform.
And guys, many times when some of these people want you to come on their platform, it's that they more or less will corral people in their corner to shame you. Many times they're not trying to have a cogent debate or a fair debate, but they're more or less trying to shame you and more or less continue to feed that narcissistic supply, because it's all predicated on power and shame. And you heard what Tasha K did to Cardi B. It's unfortunate. And see, guys, that's why, Tasha K got over 1 million subscribers. But it appears that people tend to celebrate toxic behavior. We tend to celebrate behaviors that are more or less not sustainable for our community. And that's why we got to have these conversations, but also women that are willing to speak truth to power and also call out bad behavior. Keep listening.
Afterwards, it seemed like Tasha K was hell-bent on dragging her into something that she had nothing to do with.
Got you. So Tasha K was making statements. Cardi B let her know that these statements were false. And Tasha K said, hey, if you want to clear this up, you can just come on my platform, come on my YouTube channel so I can get these clicks and views and maybe we can talk about it. And Cardi was like, well, listen, if I do that, then it's going to blow the story up more. And my representatives have told me not to do that. Is that kind of what the situation was? All right. So they kind of go. Now this case has been going on for a few years, right? Maybe 2018, 2019. So
Well, it was going since 2018.
Why doesn't every home in the US have solar panels? The number one reason is not about sunlight or weather.
It would have probably came to the court sooner, but Cardi could not get the blogger lady, Tasha K, served with court papers. She couldn't find her for the most part. Attorneys couldn't find her, or Star Marie Jones. Now you're getting something exclusive right now.
okay.
I was reached out by, I was doing a piece on cyberbullying, and apparently she got wind of me doing the story, and she reached out to me.
Well, when you say she, who are we talking about? Cardi B?
Cardi B.
Okay.
We're talking about Cardi B. She reached out to me, and she's essentially told me the story of what was going on, because I really wasn't following this. I wasn't following the blogger, but then when she called me, and it was almost a call of desperation. You know, she wanted to get this. You know, this matter in the courts. So she needs to get the blogger lady served. So I helped facilitate that.
Wow, look at that. Awesome. My man here is doing justice as well, participating in the justice, because as YouTubers, we all have a vested interest to make sure that on the one hand, information is free flowing and we can talk about things, but then on the other hand, to make sure that we're not violating anybody's rights, right? So everybody deserves.
Absolutely. And if you did a little history, Tasha K, for whatever reason, tried to make the story of me in her old neighborhood bigger than it was. She made a claim that I was stalking her, asking questions about a kid. That wasn't even the case. We were actually doing a story and a little skip tracing.
Gotcha. I know all about that skip tracing.
Absolutely.
You need to find people to get them served. If you can't serve them,
well,
your case doesn't start.
I did some private investigations back in the day. So, I mean,
awesome.
We put our team together and we made it happen, And I don't think the case wouldn't be in the court if we didn't do what we had to do on our part.
That is exactly right. Exactly right. Now, Cardi B filed her initial complaint, and there was some misconceptions. A lot of people thought that Cardi B was going to be asking for $75,000. Is that true, or can you clear that up?
Well, you as an attorney know that, in state court, there's a minimum, and in federal court, there's a minimum. So there's a bottom. But obviously, when you look at the cumulative damages that are done, that, juries award compensatory damages, punitive damages, and attorney fees. So $75,000 is the minimum, but Cardi's going for a lot more than that. You have to look at, this is a international superstar, and she has lost revenue just based on these false claims. And one of the things that came out was Tasha K was manipulating the algorithm of the videos. So when Cardi B's music video would show up right after one of her music videos, you have one of these defamatory videos playing of Tasha K. And, wow. The fact that she told the jury under direct examination by Cardi's attorney, Sarah Matz, these videos that she were doing, she did it for profit, even though she had information that would have disproved all the claims. And you ask yourself a question: why should Cardi B even have to present her medical records to a blogger because of a rumor?
Right. It's
think about that. Why would I have to show you anything about my personal life because of a rumor, and you want to clear it up? Who are you to want to clear up something that pertains to me? Fortunately for for Cardi B, Cardi B has a medical doctor that will come into the court and testify that she doesn't have herpes, she doesn't have HPV, she doesn't have any type of illness that would have.
And you know, guys, Tasha K is similar to what Mr. Palmer called the baby mama terrorist, even though, you know, it's not more or less tied to the courts as it relates to child support. But you know, it's definitely a form of cyber terrorism that more or less Tasha K elicited to Cardi B. No one should have to go do that type of slander. Some people can deal with it better. But like I said, sometimes these people are so deranged and dysfunction is normal that they get kicks out of seeing other people in pain. And, you know, what Tasha K did to Cardi B, once again, is a sign of an ego unchecked. And I agree with Dr. O that a masculine man will now allow his wife to more or less be doing or cause that kind of chaos. But sadly, many men don't have the power or the voice to speak out with clarity and conviction. And you continue to see these kind of behaviors permeate guys on a regular basis because we don't have a community of strong masculine men that more or less check that negative behavior. We have a community many times of very weak men, simps, to say the least, that more or less allow these types of behaviors to precipitate, which in essence is not beneficial not only to the family, but the community. Keep listening.
Reported these bogus claims that the blogger lady was making.
Okay, so the blogger lady was saying that she had all of these diseases, right? These venereal diseases. And, you know, Cardi B was suffering because I think it came out in the trial that she had kissed her child, and people were saying, "Oh, how can you kiss your child if you have herpes?" Imagine the pain that a mother would feel seeing all of these millions of people saying this.
Well, you know, and that's where it got kind of emotional in the courtroom. Cardi B said to the jury that it was a time when her daughter was a couple of months old, and she posted a picture kissing her daughter. And one of the comments that came in immediately was, "Why are you kissing her? You got herpes." And she said something else that was pretty powerful. She said that she, you know, in her career, she's a music recording artist, but she's also an actress. And she, you know, the fact that there was a rumor that she had herpes, that would have prevented her from doing certain type of love scenes in movie projects, and no one wanted to do something like that with her.
Oh, interesting.
So you actually, that's exclusive. I hadn't reported that.
Wow.
And guys, that goes back to, as I said again, with Mr. Palmer and the baby mama terrorist. You know, Tasha K is exuding that kind of behavior, which is displaced aggression. And that displaced aggression many times come from a place of pain and fear that's unresolved. And when you see women like Tasha K trying to more or less hinder Cardi B's ability to take care of her family, and you don't have to agree with Cardi B. I'm not a fan of Cardi B, by the way. It is what it is. But I do believe in being fair. And so, you know, displaced aggression is aggressive behavior that is directly at the person or the other target. The source is not the place of the aggression, but it's often through provocation or frustration. And, you know, a lot of times, guys, that's unconscious. Many times people don't even realize that what they're doing. But we have so much mental illness in our community that it's normal. It's normal to be dysfunctional. It's normal to disrespect people. It's normal not to respect your elders. It's normal to try to impact somebody's livelihood. And Tasha K is exuding what Mr. Palmer talked about, which is a baby mama terrorist, somebody that does not care about the well-being of that individual, but only that narcissistic ego that they're actually exhibiting at the time. Keep listening.
Oh, yeah, and that makes perfect sense. I mean, her attorneys are doing great making these arguments. You know, shout out to Uncle Stu, old man on the block. He says, you know, can you explain a little bit of the understanding or the relationship between cyberbullying in this case, kind of the legal underpinnings, kind of, because you were mentioning how this kind of looked a little bit like cyberbullying.
Well, I mean, the cyberbullying essentially is that you're using.
Oh, did we lose him? Or is it me? Is it me or is he? I don't know. What are we doing? Oh, all right. He's back. He's back. Okay.
You left. So
Okay.
the cyber part is obviously the internet. So you're bullying. You're bullying someone on the internet where the person really doesn't have an ability to defend themselves, because you can be somewhere You know, Cardi was in New York when she was getting bullied.
Mm-hmm.
Tasha K was in Atlanta bullying her. And the fact that Tasha K said in testimony that because of the onslaught of false claims against her, she wanted to commit suicide. She felt empty. She felt she didn't deserve to have a child. I mean, you gotta think about this. You have a 10-year older, her senior, bullying her. You know, to think about being in the school, going to junior high school or high school, and you have these bullies that want to take advantage of the younger people. I mean, she should know better. But this was all for profit and greed.
Right.
Most of this is for profit and greed.
Let's talk a little bit about her testimony. So when the case started, after they picked a jury and started their, the plaintiff started their case in chief. So the first witness they called was Tasha K, is that right? The blogger lady, as you call her. And what did you think about her testimony? Did she say things that hurt her, or did she say things that helped her? What's your take on what she was saying?
Well, I would say that 99.9% of the things she said harmed her. First, you have the videos that was presented one after another, where she says these very awful things about Cardi B. And then when she's asked,
let's slow down for a second. Right? What was she saying specifically in these videos? Do you remember some certain things that she was saying?
Well, I had to refer to my notes. For example, she called her herpes B. Herpes B. She had taken a beer bottle, placed it into her vaginal area, and gave it back to the patron. It just things that was easily to be disproven just based on the person.
Just setting up my new invisible fence. Groovy.
Let's talk. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
When the plaintiff's attorney asked her, "What type of research did you do to verify whether or not that was Cardi B?" She said, "Well, she really didn't do any research other than she went to Pornhub and put Cardi B's name in there, and a video popped up." Well, people make all kind of bogus videos of using celebrities' names, so that wasn't any type of research. So then when the lawyer asked her, so you didn't do any vetting on the video that you purported to be Cardi B? She said no. I mean, she said no. So it was to all the questions that were damning against her, she responded in the affirmative, and it was like she didn't even offer up a defense.
Wow. Now, let me say this. I did a video on this case a month or two ago about how the judge had been slamming Tasha K's attorneys last year during this case. The judge was very unhappy with the professionalism that Tasha K's attorney showed. And he said in open court that, Tasha K needed to settle this case. Was there any indication why this case didn't settle?
Well, once the case got dismissed, her counterclaim got dismissed, and she had no option of settling. Cardi didn't want to settle. Cardi wanted to get this case in front of a jury to make a point that what this woman did was basically try to destroy her life. Cardi testified.
And I agree with Bodacious Lady there. You're correct. Tasha K fed off her ego and wear her pain and trauma on her shoulders. Tasha K's husband does not care what she does. He's only looking for money. And it appears that way. It appears that perhaps he's only looking for money because, he is from a foreign country. And, the fact that Tasha K is continuing to exude these negative behaviors is something telling. I think Tasha K is dealing with a lot of unresolved mental illness. I think Tasha K is the Wizard of Oz because YouTube has afforded her the ability to say and do things that she really never would have had a platform. YouTube has afforded, as I said earlier, many people with undiagnosed mental illness to become greater than what their fragile ego really is. And when you get an audience of people to feed that fragile ego, you continue to see the negative dispositions that you're currently seeing now. And so, Bodacious Lady, I agree with you 100%. What you're saying is 100% correct. And that's why these conversations are important.
That she had to get therapy. She had to fly a therapist in. One time she had a crisis, from, I don't know where the therapist came from, but she flew her to New York, and she had to stay with her for a period of time until she, got calmed down and was dealing with this. I mean, she said she didn't even feel a desire to make love to her husband. So the thing about the impact that had on this young mother who, her daughter now is 3 years old. She has a son 4 months old. So think about the time, this case is about 3 years old.
Yeah.
So you have to think about what she was going through, and think about a woman going through a pregnancy and then having a baby and then dealing with the post-traumatic stress that she had to deal with. She's a working mother. She's an entertainer. She's someone that had to manage all this while being attacked by someone she didn't even know.
Yeah, it seems that, everything is in her favor. I'm talking about Cardi B. Let me ask you this. We all know kind of Cardi B's demeanor, and, she's definitely a person, maybe you could say, from the streets. She's kind of hardcore.
And, the fact that Cardi B had to get a therapist, more or less synonymous to her perhaps going through what's called an adjustment disorder with depression and anxiety. And it also could lead to what's called acute post-traumatic stress disorder. And that's why these conversations are so important, guys, because Tasha K is definitely dealing with some unconscious pathologies that need to be dealt with, but also she's been causing other people trauma and pain, more importantly, Cardi B. And listen, we know that Cardi B has been a person of ill repute as well. We know that Cardi B is not an angel. We know that Cardi B has a very toxic mouth. They both are very toxic, but for the sake of the argument, Tasha K has been causing more damage than Cardi B ever could because she's attacked several people. She's the queen of gossip in YouTube, and she's caused a lot of people distress. Like I said, well, not distress, but disrespect. She disrespected the lead attorney. She's disrespecting Cardi B now, and I'm sure she's done it to others in the past, and she has a very violent nature when it comes down to black men. I believe that she has some pain from her past due to how she was treated. And now Tasha K can say, I'm going to get you back based on how people treated me in my younger years. Keep listening.
Did that demeanor come out when she was on the witness stand? I think somebody reported maybe that she had slipped up and cursed one time. And then the second part to that, even with that hard outer demeanor, do you think that she was still a sympathetic witness?
Well, I won't say she's a hardcore. She testified that she came, she was born in Washington Heights. She grew up in the South Bronx, and it was a rough neighborhood. And I think that when she was, and it was me that reported it, that she had, when she learned what Tasha K was doing to her, she said that essentially she was a demon. Only a demon would do some type of ish like that, and she apologized to the judge when she said it, but she said it passionately, and the jury didn't react in any way when she said it. It's just, this is Cardi B. She's raw, she's very colorful, and she was speaking how she felt.
Yeah. Did she come across as sympathetic? Did she come across?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. It was a matter of fact type of examination. She didn't hedge on anything, and she said how she felt. I mean, it was, I didn't even understand the magnitude of what she was going through. I knew she was going through some things dealing with this, but I didn't know she contemplated suicide. And it wasn't for me to know, but to show you that, you can have so much success. It doesn't really matter. You're still a human being.
Absolutely. And you mentioned maybe the effects on the jury listening to what she was saying. I had heard that maybe one of the jury's members had gotten excused, or do you know anything about that?
Absolutely. So
this is the world's first reusable cotton swab. It removes up to 5 times more excess earwax. Recent study.
During one of the recesses, the juror went back to the jury room and stated essentially that one of the videos that was played in open court, Tasha K had a kid in the background, and her daughter in the background, and the jury couldn't believe that she would say such awful things around this young minor. So she said that, and another jury wrote a note to the judge and brought it to their attention, because you can't, as an attorney, you can't speak about a case while it's still in open court. You have to wait until you go into deliberation to talk about it. So and then she wasn't even the juror that clutched her chest when they heard some other type of testimony. So this was a different juror.
Wow, there was a juror that kind of clutched her chest when they were listening to the testimony or the video.
It's a separate juror. So the judge asked the defense and the plaintiff, do they think that this juror could stay on? And immediately the defense said, no, we don't want her.
Right. That's exactly right. Get her out, right?
Get her out of here.
That is exactly right. What is the, just kind of ballparking it, what do you think the demographics are, the makeup of the jury? Are they mostly white, mostly black, mostly young, mostly old, kind of men, women?
Well, you have 2 blacks and 7 whites on the jury. 2 blacks, 7 whites. We lost one of the jurors. It was 10. We lost one yesterday because of the judge excusing that juror.
Now it seems like since Tasha K, has admitted to so much of this stuff, as an attorney, you never want to say something's open and shut, right? A slam dunk case, because you never really know what a jury will do.
We don't want to say that, but I would just say that the husband's testimony didn't help the case much either.
What can you describe to us the husband's testimony? What was he saying? What did they ask him, and what were his responses?
Well, I'll just say he refuted about 4 things that she testified the previous day, basically saying she was lying.
Wow. So wait, so the husband was contradicting his wife or the blogger? Wow.
Absolutely.
On what things were there the contradictions?
One of the things that the husband said that contradicted what the wife said was Tasha K. When Tasha K was on the stand, she said that Kibi Studios has a multitude of businesses under Kibi Studios. But when the husband took the stand, he said there's no other business under Kibi Studios. So the lawyer for Cardi B asked, so was your wife lying when she said that? And he said yes.
Wow. Oh my God. Listen, guys, listen. When you get up there in federal court, this ain't municipal court, right? This ain't state court. This is federal court. When you get up there, you have to raise your right hand and swear to tell the truth. I mean, that's for real. In fact, was it the case that the judge maybe, or at least one of the attorneys, wanted Tasha K admonished or reminded about the rules of perjury so that she didn't, commit perjury, trying to go back on what she was saying before?
Well, what happened was during the line of direct examination, the lawyer would ask a question and Tasha K would provide a different answer to a question not asked. So she basically was non-responsive. And the lawyer, Sarah Mates, said to the judge, Your Honor, she's non-responsive.
Shout out to my man, Karan. Asked for the $5 super sticker. Thank you, brother. And Karan, I think you're correct. We know that both women are very negative and toxic. I think Cardi B at the macro level, Tasha K, as you were saying, for now. But to point, you're correct. I agree with you 100%. Tasha K and Cardi B both are archetypes of the Proverbs 5 woman, strange woman. This is a war between 2 destroyers of men. One is wrong and both are very wicked. And I would say you're correct. I would say as it relates to now, I think Tasha K is definitely the worser. But overall, what Cardi B has done to elicit negative behaviors to our women and also on our men as it relates to rebellion, I think Cardi B gets the Rebellion Award because she's done a lot more because she's a bigger name. Tasha K is like a barracuda, as I said before in the past. But Cardi B has definitely done some dirt and damage as well. So I agree with you 100%, brother. Keep listening, then we're going to have a conversation.
And the judge looks at Tasha K and says, don't do that again. I have warned you before. Don't do it again. So I'm thinking that she's probably trying to fluster the lawyer by trying to act like she didn't understand the question. but it was clear to everyone else in the courtroom what the question was. And I counted over 30 times with what Tasha K said, I didn't understand. Can you repeat yourself? I didn't understand. I'm like,
wow. Over 30 times. Now, to give Tasha K credit, you know, she was saying that she, you know, when she was attacking me, she said that we can't expect too much from her because she had to repeat the 9th grade 3 times, right? So maybe there were.
Whoa. Wait a minute. You had to repeat the 9th grade 3 times? That's
what she said.
Wow, I didn't know that.
That's what she said. So maybe we'll cut her a little bit of slack on that. Maybe.
No.
He said, no. My man's not giving her an itch. All right, let me ask you this. It seems to me a lot of times, and I've represented so many people who were guilty of certain things, and it always helps if the person, if you're going to admit to something, that's fine. If the person seems contrite, if the person seems apologetic. Do you think Tasha K at all was when she testified, was she contrite or apologetic? Did she seem sorry about some of the things that she had said that were hurting Cardi B?
Not at all. As a matter of fact, it came across as cold. It was pathetic.
And guys, that goes back to what we call the lack of self-awareness as it relates to the ego. One side of the ego is very primitive. That's called the id. And then you have a side of the ego called the super ego, which is a benefactor of doing what's right and benevolent. And the fact that, according to Myron, as he's speaking to the lead attorney, that Tasha K appeared to be very cold, more or less deals with people that are very narcissistic. Narcissists do not have empathy for the people that they're dealing with. That's one of the prevailing traits of a narcissist. And I'm going to say it on record that Tasha K has some undiagnosed mental illness. I would even say there's a possibility that she could have narcissistic personality disorders or some narcissistic traits. Even if she's not a bona fide narcissist as it relates to a personality disorder, she definitely has some unresolved mental illness. And like one of the brothers said early, Tasha K is in a relationship where it appears that the man don't care, because a true masculine man is not going to let his woman be that reckless with her mouth. In a minute, guys, we're going to drop the link and we're going to have a conversation. If you guys have not donated, please donate to the channel. Thank you, Karan, for donating earlier. Thank you, Asia. But guys, please donate to Cash Out $7 Smalls. If you don't have any money to share, I'm okay with that. Share the content. Sharing the content helps me sometime more than the money. Thank you, Cool Gent, for sharing the content earlier. To the ones that have not shared it, shared it. Get the likes up. We're going to have a conversation because we're going to talk about these two toxic women, Cardi B and also Tasha K, and the impact that they're doing not only in the YouTube space, but also on the infrastructure of the Black community. Keep listening.
For example, here's one thing that was kind of weird. During the direct examination by attorney Mates, she asked Tasha K, the video of Star Marie Jones, isn't it fact that it has over 3 million views right now and it's still up? Tasha K's response, no, that's not right. It has 4.8 million views.
Wow. He's going to put some respect on my views. Man, so she was just standing on it, huh? Like she was just
doubling down,
just like let me pull this up, just like Broski said, no remorse, right? She didn't show, and guys, the reason that remorsefulness is so important is not necessarily because you're going to win, right? Because it kind of looks like a foregone conclusion, but after this part, you have to figure out how much Tasha's going to pay. And usually if the person seems sorry, truly remorseful, like, oh my gosh, I didn't know, then you might have to pay a little bit. But when a person just digs in their heels and says, no, you know, I know I did this and I know that, then the jury's like, oh, okay. The judge is like, oh, right.
Well, the fact of the matter is she still has these videos up. So any type of remorse is out the window. You still have the videos up. You got 3.
So she didn't even take the videos down.
No, she has 3. She received 3 cease and desist. She said in one of the posts that the lawyers for Cardi B can tell the lawyers for Cardi B that she's going to wipe her ass with the cease and desist. Now, the jury's hearing this. The jury's hearing that she has no respect for the legal process, or she had an opportunity to take it down. 3 times.
Mm.
She didn't do that. And I don't understand that we're in the 4th day of trial, going into the 5th day.
And that's what we're talking about. One of the people said earlier, I believe it was Bodacious Lady, and she's correct. What masculine man will allow his wife to go through this turbulence of social ridicule and not hold her accountable? Does he really love his wife? Because if he really loved his wife, then he will correct her behavior. Or is he a conscious and or unconscious simp that allows his wife to wear the pants in the relationship? Because technically, if he's a leader of his wife, then he should guide her and check that bad behavior regardless of money. But listen to what the man said. She had 3 times to take it down, but she didn't. So what does that say about her husband? Is he actually being the leader in that relationship? Or is he just a sucker that's using Tasha K for money and fame? Keep listening.
Okay. And she wouldn't even show any type of grace and say, I'm going to take the videos down. I had a calling of Jesus moment. And I really, after listening to her testimony, I realized that I've hurt this woman. I mean, this woman that has so much was contemplating killing herself.
Wow. And so when you juxtapose that to shout out to Sephora, when Sephora says the best part is the extortion, right? Because I think that's what she was kind of that's what there was some pay to play type of action where if you want my videos down, you need to pay me, right?
Right. So in another examination part where the lawyer asked
a great philosopher once said, life begins at 40.
When you come back from tour, you're supposed to come back with laryngitis, not
Tasha K. They played a video where Tasha K said that the only way I take these videos down is if you pay me. And even then, I'm going to find a way to monetize or make a residual off those videos. So you already admitted to trying to extort this woman. Then you said that even if you extort her, that you're still going to try and find a way to make money off the videos.
Wow.
I mean,
it's amazing. Mm-hmm. Let me ask you. So where are we now with the trial? Because we know that today is Friday, right? Monday's closed, federal holiday. Shout out to Martin Luther King. And so the
question remains: who's holding this woman accountable? How can a man be in a relationship where he's not holding his woman accountable? Yazid said something that's very profound. He said that true indeed, kosher. He said, I heard her husband's Nigerian in most cases. If the money is good, he will always allow her to continue the bad behavior. And that appears to be the case, sadly. Shout out to my man, Karan, asked for the $2 super sticker. He said, Tasha K, husband's a new age Ahab. She is the ruler. I agree with that, brother. Because if he had the spirit of Jehu, he will not tolerate that very deplorable behavior that she's eliciting. Tasha K comes off as not a feminine woman. She comes off as very masculine. And I like the conversation that Tasha K had with Kevin Samuels. I thought was very good. But Tasha K comes off as very toxic. And like I said, you saw it full swing when she attacked the lead attorney in the past. Keep listening.
The trial resumes on Tuesday, or where are we?
It resumes on Tuesday, and Cardi B right now is under cross-examination by Tasha's lawyer, Olga. I don't know her last name. I have to look her last name up. But Olga's cross-examining Cardi B, and Cardi B is doing very good even on cross.
Interesting. Now, have they at some point? There's going to be the issue of damages, right? Has there been any testimony regarding the financial wherewithal of Tasha K? You know, it's kind of irrelevant, but I didn't know it's relevant to.
So listen, guys, you know, we're not going to continue to.
But I didn't know if there had been any talk.
Continue to talk about all the shenanigans of this case. I just want to give you guys a small clip or a small portion of what the lead attorney talked about. It's not necessary to go do all the nuances of the case. Go check out the lead attorney on his channel. Go check out the show that he did with Tasha K. I'm saying I'm losing. This is for educational purposes, guys, as it relates to mental health pathologies, as it relates to narcissistic traits, as it relates to potential borderline disorders, and also displaced aggressions, and also primitive egos that appear to be permeating in our culture. So we're going to have a discussion. We're going to have a powerful discussion. I'm going to drop the link, guys. We're going to come up and we're going to talk because this is a dialogue not a monologue. This is a dialogue, guys, not a monologue. And some of you guys are dealing with women like Tasha K. Karan S. and Aziz both agreed that the epigenesis to this problem is that Tasha K and Cardi B are both women of the same issues, meaning that they're very toxic for our communities, but also very toxic on our women. You know, you would think that Tasha K, being a woman, would not be as vicious as she was towards Cardi B. And as I'm not a fan of Cardi B, as I said earlier when I was doing some mental notes, that hell has no fury like a woman scorned. And sometimes the reason why women don't deal with women, because women understand women when they're in their toxic nature and their toxic ego, because many times they displace that aggression towards that woman. And so the question remains, Tasha K, a woman that failed the ninth grade 3 times. Is Tasha K eliciting or projecting her pain from her past in high school? If Tasha K failed, class 3 times, I think Tasha K was in special ed, I believe. And so is Tasha K saying, now's my get back for how I was treated or how I was more or less disrespected? I was a special ed teacher. Tasha K could have had dyslexia, where she reads backwards, or she could have had ADHD. She could have had a myriad of issues that led to her behavior now. Tasha K could have had also oppositional defiant disorder. Many kids that have ADHD have what's called comorbidities that's more or less tied into what's called oppositional defiant disorder. So, it's a question that needs to be discussed and talked about, because like Bodacious Lady said, my sister had to take the mask off and do the work right. Part of that is what's called shallow work. It's part of Jungian psychology, where we have to do the self-reflection. But also, Bodacious Lady, the issue that many are having is something called the Medusa complex. Medusa was a woman in mythology where when you would put her against the mirror or when she would stare at people, they would turn to stone. Many can't stand to look at themselves in the mirror because they would become petrified like Medusa. And until you do the work as it relates to the pathologies that are going on in your head, you would never become the best version of yourself. You're going to always uncover so that you can recover from the pain that you are dealing with. And so once again, guys, this is it's a good show. It's a good conversation because it's something we need to talk about. And once again, go check out the show on the Lead Attorney for the full stream. It was about a 5-hour stream, I believe. Thank you, Gail, for that. And like I said, guys, we got to have the conversation. I'm going to drop the link, and understand that we need to have these conversations about these bad behaviors. But did Tasha K calls Cardi B distress? That Tasha K calls Cardi B distress as it relates to her mental health. Is Tasha K, like so many in YouTube, the Wizard of Oz? I'm going to do a show on that. Because many are avatars and many are behind avatars to more or less placate a very fragile ego. And that's why we got to have these conversations. So the link has been dropped. Let's get into it, guys. If you have not donate to the channel, share the content, help me get this information out, because mental illness is very precarious in the Black community. We need to talk about it, because many of you that are listening are dealing with unresolved trauma. Many of you are living through the trauma of your fathers, your mothers, those bad relationships that you had. You got with dusty guys like Raekwon the Man. And because you got with those dusty guys like Raekwon the Man, you don't have the space in your heart for good men. You have been imprinted by dusty men to the point that when a good, decent man tries to give you love and affection, you can't receive it because you have been afflicted. And because you've been afflicted, now you have what's called a schema affliction. And shout out to my man, Narc Perspective. Narc Perspective, man, I'm going to have you on the show soon, young buck. I appreciate everything you do, man. He's just support for the biggest hobbit. That's my man. That's my little homie, Narc Perspective. But I love you, brother. Thank you for that, man. But I got a show coming up talking about spirituality and that conversation that we had. And, I'm going to call you and I'm going to set up something with you and another brother. And we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about the spiritual aspect of psychology, but also as it relates to paranormal psychology, something that many times is not discussed because we tend to look at things through the lens of empiricism, which is actually science. So thank you, Narc Perspective. You always hold me down, brother. I really appreciate everything that you're doing. Thank you. Thank Top Gun, Cool Gent, all the other brothers, the regulars. And guys, we're slowly growing our army. I'm going to start a Patreon at some point. I'm going to start a Patreon account at some point. With that Patreon, some of the content will only be for patrons. I'm going to start a membership at some point as well. But as you guys know, this stuff is extremely time consuming. When you donate, it really helps me because it helps put my time in its proper perspective. This is the holiday, but also this is a time for liberation, not only for the psyche as it relates to our men, but it's liberation for our women. Because remember this, women, if you protect his 6, he will protect your 6. And your 6 is what they say in the military, which is your back. Your back is your 6. When you protect his 6, he'll protect your 6. If you protect his ego, which is his inner sanctum, then he will protect you as it relates to physicality. Men need protection as it relates to the mind. Men need a woman that's loyal, that's honest, somebody that's going to help be his cheerleader when he's down. If you can help calibrate him on the mental end, then he will calibrate you on the physical, and he will shower you with love, grace, protection, and dignity. And that's why we got to have these conversations, guys, because there's a lot of undiagnosed madness in our community. We never lived in a time where dysfunction is celebrated. Up is down, down is up. I'm from the generation of 90. I don't resonate with this current generation that we live in. And sad because many people don't talk about it, guys. We continue to have the same issues over and over and over again. So once again, guys, I appreciate everything you guys are doing. Please call in. Let's have a conversation. Gail has dropped a link. Thank you, dear. And we're going to have a conversation because Tasha K appears to have caused mental distress on Cardi B. Tasha K has caused mental distress on Cardi B. I believe that Cardi B is going to do what's called an adjustment disorder with anxiety and depression. I believe she's going to do an adjustment disorder. Remember this, an adjustment disorder is not a bona fide mental illness. It's something temporary. Many times it can be satiated due to what's called solution-focused therapy or brief solution therapy. It's brief. It's just a condition that you have to go through. Many times when people lose a pet or they lose a loved one, it's something called an adjustment disorder. It's normally tied to grief or bereavement disorder. And that's why these conversations are so important, guys, because many times we minimize the cacophony that's in our heads as it relates to mental illness. And that's why as a licensed therapist, I do these shows because many times mental illness is minimized. You're not going to find a person in these space, as you know, me and Chantel Simone talked last night, that's a licensed clinical therapist, went to one of the best schools in the country, have a background in law enforcement, but also was a special education teacher. How many people do you know in this space that have that background? You know, no cap, and not trying to brag. But that's why I want you guys to take what I do serious, but also I want you to appreciate it because it all starts with the mind. Shout out to my man, Top Gun, for the $5 stupid sticker. Thank you, brother. I really appreciate it. It's a great topic, culture. Imagine Michigan custody battle getting this kind of thing right. I agree with you 100%. You're 100% correct, man. You know, a lot of brothers are dealing with this kind of demon. Sadly, a lot of our women tend to associate these kind of behaviors that are very toxic. You know, Mr. Palmer called it, you know, the baby mama terrorist. And Tasha K definitely is exuding some of the behaviors that, you know, a lot of the men actually deal with. Shout out to Tech and Wanderlust. Yes, that patron will be worth its weight in gold, no doubt, brother. And it's definitely something I'm going to work on at some point. Now, guys, this is Martin Luther King's birthday. You know, Martin Luther King was an icon as relates to freedom, justice, and tranquility. And one of the famous quotes by Dr. King was, do not judge a man by the color of his skin, but by the content of his character. But the question remains today, guys, how many are actually judging men by the content of their character? How many are actually seeing men as human beings instead of human doings? And that's why these conversations are important as it relates to dealing with primitive egos and negative behaviors. So, guys, the link has been dropped. Let's have a conversation. You know, many of you guys are off for the holidays. You guys have seen this negative personification of Tasha K. And, you know, these conversations need to be addressed because some of you have dealt with adjustment disorders associated with anxiety and depression. Some of you right now are dealing with adjustment disorders. And some of you many times don't have anyone to help you talk about it because you're suffering in silence. And that suffering in silence has caused your development to become arrested. And arrested development is a condition due to negative socialization. And that's why we got to have these conversations, guys. As I said earlier, it's very important to have these conversations because you're not going to be at your best until you're able to break that mental fragmentation that's going on inside your head. And one of the biggest things, guys, Kevin Samuels talked about sign language, and I would say that the sign language is greatly associated with Tasha K, more or less calling out Cardi B, shame, insults, guilt, and the need to be right. But also, it's also predicated on cognitive dissonance. When they deny the evidence of the behavior, they become enraged when you present them with the evidence. They argue, do ad hominem attacks where they attack the messenger instead of the message. And then once you continue to hit them and drill them with the information, they fight you or flee. So Tasha K was a victim not only of sign language, but also of being deaf, meaning she cannot hear what's going on because of the cacophony that's inside her head. And also due to cognitive dissonance, meaning I'm not aware, I can't hear, I can't see because I'm blinded by behaviors that I'm unwilling to address. And until we address those issues, guys, until we do the work to help uncover so that we can recover, we're going to continue to have these negative consequences that we're having now. Thank you, Gail. And so once again, guys, if you're dealing with mental health diagnosis or mental health issues, come see me at coachtheclinician@gmail.com for a non-diagnostic clinical consultation. A consultation is not a bona fide mental illness. It's not a bona fide mental illness or a bona fide diagnosis, but a consultation is just that. I'm not diagnosing you based on comity laws. Comity laws say if you live in the state of California, I live in North Carolina, then you have to be licensed in that state. I'm licensed in the state of North Carolina, so I can give you a consultation because it's not a diagnosis. But once you get a verifiable diagnosis, then it needs to be more or less addressed based on treatment goals, treatment plans, medication if needed, and et cetera, et cetera. So that's why I say a consultation is very important. And I do a lot of consultations, and I'm helping a lot of men behind the scenes because you're not going to find a black masculine therapist from a perspective that seeks male, that more or less is predicated on male empowerment, but also that's based on traditional conservative values that seek to improve the outcomes associated not only with our men, but outcomes associated with our women. Because once again, if you protect the man, then the man will turn around and protect the woman. That's why I believe the male empowerment is so important. It's paramount. When you empower the man, then you will empower the woman. If the woman is willing to be a recipient of being empowered. Because a relationship, ladies, is a symbiotic relationship. And I had a great show last night with Chantel Simone. Go check that show out on her channel, Chantel Simone. She's an awesome young lady. And I'm going to also be doing a show in the future called Uncovered Gems, The Remnant. Because there are some women that are listening that are uncovered gems. They're waiting for good men to come and scoop them up. They're good sisters that many times are minimized, that many times go unchecked or unaware or more or less unfound. Good women. And so that show is going to be called The Remnant, but also those uncovered gems, because there are men that are listening that are looking for good quality women. But sadly, so many men feel that they must go through the cesspool of toxicity that's associated with women like Cardi B and Tasha K, that the chances of them finding a diamond in the rough is slim to none. So once again, I've dropped the link. And I need you guys to pop in and let's have a conversation. She said this information provided on this channel is worth more than the entertainment value. I appreciate it, AP Leo Quinn. You're right, dear. I'm sad that we don't, in the black community, we don't exonerate things like therapy. In the white community, they talk about it, but sad in the black community, we tend to minimize it. We tend to more or less glorify salaciousness, goofy stuff, entertainment. But when it comes down to more or less fortifying the mind or eradicating things in the mind, we tend to minimize that. And, it can be frustrating at times, because mental health is serious, A lot of people are dealing with mental health issues. I'm going to do a show soon talking about Wendy Williams. She's dealing with a mental health crisis where it was assumed that she was taking her clothes off and she was in a drunken state of rage. So, like I said, guys, let's have a conversation. Gail has dropped the link. Thank you, Gail. I appreciate everything you're doing, dear. Gail is on it. I love me some Gail. And, we were laughing, guys, talking about, Gail, I don't know if you saw the show I did with WAPO, but we were talking about that natural hair. And, we love that black cotton. It's not like that pretty, thick black cotton. Gail has some very pretty hair. I love her hair. Hair is very pretty. And, we love it, ladies, when you ladies are natural. We love natural women. It's not like a beautiful natural woman. It's very attractive. So come in, guys. Let's have a conversation. Some of the women, don't be afraid. I'm not going to bite you. You know, I'm gentle. I'm a Leo, but I don't bite unless you make me bite. As long as you can, I can be a kitten, but I can be a lion too. So I'd rather be a lion. I mean, a kitten instead of a lion, because it takes a lot of energy to be a lion. I'd rather be a kitten. But let's have a conversation. Gail has dropped the link. And thank you, impressive vibe. Break it down, Casey. No doubt, sis. That's that fire for your mind, because I'll
fire for your mind.
To more
culture,
burn
clinician.
out the negativity that's associated in our community. We got to have these conversations, ladies and gentlemen. So I need you guys to come on. Let's have a conversation. I'm waiting. We got my man Yaziz in the house, the intellectual. Yaziz, what's up, brother? How you doing, sir?
Man, I'm so amazing today, man.
We got Sweet Lulu Bean. That's my dear sister. Loves Sweet Lulu Bean. So what are you gathering from this conversation about the undiagnosed mental madness that's permeating our community, and the need to find positive solutions and resolve? Because on one end, as it relates to the bigger picture, I will agree that Cardi B is definitely the saboteur of ignorance and toxicity. But for the sake of the argument, Yaziz, it appears that Tasha K is dealing with some undiagnosed mental illness. She definitely has some narcissistic traits. And I definitely think she has a very strong, what some will call a Jezebel spirit, as it appears that her husband is not checking that bad behavior. What's your take on it?
No, I totally agree with that. I know that K-Ron has said something very important about both of them being an archetype. And this is the results that we get when men are out of cycle. Women are also thrown out of cycle, And when something is out of cycle, it goes out of bounds. And once something is out of bounds, anything can happen out there. Like life is supposed to be played within parameters. Right. So, women acting outside of the certain parameters of what's considered femininity, you're going to see things that's going to come about that, that what you call mental illness is going to lead to those things, because these are things that's out of the norm. These are abnormal things. And then abnormality causes what you call misuse or abuse. So what Cardi B is experiencing, what Tasha K is experiencing, is that they experiencing a lot of great, like the repercussions of self-abuse. Right. And they don't even know that they're abusing themselves.
And you know what? I don't know, you and I are from Gen X, we're class of 90, we're not class of 90, but we're definitely Gen X's. Would you say that you're beginning to see the permeation or the proliferation of this negativity being more profound now, Yaziz, than when you and I were teenagers or young men growing up? What would you say about that?
Oh, that's definite. Like, for instance, when we were growing up, you had a time when girlfriends and boyfriends, they would dress alike, going to school, holding each other's books. Those things were okay. Right. We didn't consider that simping back then, only because a woman was actually in her role. That was a part of getting to know each other, understanding, the woman trying to be like the man, be his reflection. That was all a part of that. Of course, there's a lot of things that during our generation that we were taught that was wrong. And of course, like, the old saying goes, it'll never get right going down the wrong road. And as you keep going down that same exact path, I mean, the thorns get bigger, the sting gets bigger. It's like if you go by the story of the caterpillar who metamorphoses into a butterfly, the butterfly, just because he can fly, is not free. What happens is that his predators become bigger. He get birds and windshields. And that's, I think, what's happening to the generation now. We're actually seeing, we're actually reaping everything that was sowed during that generation, generation before us. And it's just the ball is just getting bigger.
Right. It is getting bigger, man. And it's getting bigger because of the lack of male leadership, but also the lack of some of our women, I say some, not all, allow men to become men in their homes, allow men to execute masculine authority, allow men to be the exemplars in their community. And so many times, Yaziz, there was this troll named, I can't think of his name, this clown named Jamaican Traveler, and he was talking about how ADOS men don't do this and that, not understanding that in other cultures, the men are allowed to be men. They don't have caustic policies like feminism that prevent men from more or less exuding their masculine virtues. And I would say that when you think about ADOS men on par, no other men have went through what ADOS men have went through, but still come out at a higher level of success. And so it's easier, Aziz, to denigrate African American men, after all the trauma that we've been through, and we've been the victims of redlining, caustic feminism, and all of that. And and for some people, sometimes some immigrants to come over and try to cause or more or less disrespect men of color. And so I agree with you. In order to get the families back on right track, which I don't see it in our lifetime, we need the men being participants that are willing to speak up, speak truth to power, and not being shamed into submission like so many other men. What's your take on that?
No, that's very true. Just as my own example, if I put myself in those shoes, I remember growing up, and even in growing up, I always was told that I was too hardcore, and I had to have some finesse to me, right? And so anytime, by the time I got to university age, a couple of my brothers would be like, "Hey, you got to have some finesse. You too hardcore with these women." That's what I was told. So then eventually when I started giving in, I started dostling down. I realized that even in relationships with women, in the very beginning, it's sweet. But then that only lasts, 3 to 6 months. After that 6 months, then what happens is there comes a power struggle. And I would always lose in that situation because, that when you hand over that type of power, that type of manhood, and especially the fact that in our society, women are told that they're out front. And then, like you was explaining about our historical past, it weakens us. It actually, that empowerment of women, man, there's the ramification, the things that come off of that, man, it's devastating, And so from my own experience, when I did that, this is when I became unsuccessful in relationships. This is what causes women to feel like, I can just go out there and sleep with another man because I don't respect this man right here who wants to play this role.
Right.
But then as I began to travel and I started learning about, how men respond to things in life, not just with women, but just in general, that's when I started learning that, the way I was when I was in my youth, before I got into those later teenage years, those early 20s, that was a better way. And if I would have stayed on that path, I probably would have been more successful, and I would have weeded out the wrong type of women and the wrong type of mentalities.
Right. Shout out to my dear lady, Sweet Lulu Bean. Yazis, we need more women like Sweet Lulu Bean because she has the spirit of the mongoose. She's willing to attack the vipers and the serpents that are more or less permeating this negative cesspool called America. Sweet Lulu Bean, how you doing, dear? And how would you like to add clarity to this discussion, dear?
Hi, Kosha. How are you doing?
How you doing, dear? What's going on?
So with Tasha K has been very problematic. I don't know if you know another blogger called Lovely T. I don't really follow her that much, but I remember there was a situation, and it was based on this whole Cardi B thing, where Tasha K wanted Lovely T to jump on this whole Cardi B thing. And then Lovely T was like, she wants to sit back because she's not sure whether it's real or not, whether it's true or not. And I think is her name Lioness or something? But there was a whole show where a couple of, Black bloggers came together, and they've all complained about Tasha K not being interested in the truth of a story, or in the truth of what she says.
Right.
And I understand that this is about Tasha K, but I also think it's about the wider Black female community. For me, a Tasha K, a Cynthia G, who's the other one? Something TKO.
TKO, Chris Logic.
Yeah, there's that is what makes up a very big chunk of of so-called female entertainment. I've been listening to these female entertainers here and there, and there's I did listen to Tasha K for a while because I like the fact that she used to talk about marriage. And she's also married to an African man, so I thought she was traditional. But in terms of her actions, obviously it's the opposite. But and I understand where people are coming from in that her and Cardi B are problematic, and I hear what Yaziz is saying in that Tasha K going after a Cardi B, it's because we're out of cycle. part of me is like, maybe this is what needs to happen so that we actually see how wrong it is, because right now we've got this divide between black men and women, where black women always have something to say about black men, not being enough or doing enough.
Right.
But you don't, you don't hear black women. I mean, where are black women in this conversation? I didn't hear black women saying, Tasha K and Cardi B, you're both women, you shouldn't be going after each other. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
Good,
yeah.
excellent point. Right, and that goes
Great
back.
point.
That's it. Go ahead, sweet little bit. Go ahead.
No. You go ahead.
No, and that goes back to what I was saying earlier about the hive mentality, how women do things based on group dynamics, men do things based on the hierarchy of power. And I agree with you. Where were the women calling out Cardi B and Tasha K and say, this doesn't look good, stop it. But, we tend to love drama and salaciousness. We love stuff like that. We love toxic behavior. Being toxic is the norm in our culture, which is sad. And you begin to see it permeate, I would say even more so now, sweet little bean. I'm going to ask you a question. Do you see these kind of behaviors in your culture in South Africa? How do the women deal with chaos or conflict in your country?
So the difference is where I come from, and I think I've said this to Kosha, is it's very direct. People, and which is an issue that I've had here, because here, there's the pronouns, here there's censorship, whereas there you're very direct. And if you say the wrong thing, I mean, like if we have to come to fisticuffs, if my sister speaks to me sideways, she knows that I will do something about it. And also when you have, I was telling the lead attorney a story, and he was so shocked. I was telling him,
I remember
the story with my cousin, right? And what
right.
we did, how my male cousins got together, they put my cousin in his place. Mm-hmm. So, and here it's like, oh, you're violent, you're this, you're that. Sometimes, I have no issues with a slap across the face. Sometimes that's the language you have to speak to certain people, which is what you don't have here. Is women aren't scared of men. I'm not saying you should cower to a man, but the reason you can spit at a man, the reason you can throw his TV and smash his place and his car and then call the police is because he's got no recourse. Mm-hmm. Whereas where I come from, you're not about to do that because you know that he is going to stand up for himself and he has every right to stand up for himself. Mm-hmm. Here, you're not going to talk to me anyhow. Like I said, and there's hierarchy. You don't just speak to your grandmother anyhow. You don't just speak to your grandfather anyhow. You don't speak to your older sister. You don't even call your older sister by her name. She's got a title because she's your older sister or your older brother. Mm-hmm. So you get what I'm trying to say? And those things here aren't in place. But like I said, with me, my husband has often had to remind me that you are in America. Because, there are times I'm like, why am I still talking to this person? Like, clearly we're past talking here. And, he's often going to say, babe, I'm not about to pay you out.
Interesting to note, there was a time where it was like that in America, but there was times when the church was the center of the community. No coincidence, this is Dr. King's the holiday that's celebrated for Dr. King. But one thing that Dr. King was always about was the community. Mm-hmm. And he had the ability to utilize the churches and gather them together. Hence, you have the Southern Christian Leadership Conference.
Right.
But the church was a place where order, that's where order began. The home,
that's where it began. Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So from the home, you had to represent properly going to the church. So the fathers and mothers had to make sure that you were right at home, so that when you get to church, you didn't embarrass them. And then the church would give you other things that it needed to give you. And it's not to be ultra religious, etc. But when we look at from America, we can do DNA tests and say from the Congo, part of our genetics is from here, from South America. We could do that test. But then when it really comes down to it and how we're identified in real life, we're all identified as the former slave. And the only thing that we have, that we had as former slaves, is that we had a spiritual heritage that we were able to grasp, and that was our connection to God based on our struggle.
Right.
And that's what made us collective, and that also our parameters of how do we apply the pecking order between honoring our mother and father so that they belong keeping your bond with your brother, your word is your bond, a woman's relationship to a man within the community, the protection, all of that was scriptural. Once that was removed and the myriad of ideas and identities came in, a lot of people lost themselves. And then now we don't have any order to teach.
Yes, I totally agree, Aziz. There was a gospel group called the Whiners. You remember the Whiners?
Yes.
Commission, and you and I grew up in a time when things were more normal, but the Whiners wrote a song back in the 80s said, bring back the days of yay and nay. I don't know if you remember that song, but the Whiners talked about that song. And I remember a group called Commission. And I'm going to have Carl Reed on my show again. He was on my show in the past. Commission was one of the greatest gospel groups of all time, in my opinion. That, actually spearheaded secular groups like Boys to Men. And I just remember a time when things were normal, when the music was normal, the families, they weren't perfect, but they were a lot more intact. But now with kids being, over 80% of kids or over 7% of kids being born in single parent homes, and people, talking about black love and black unification, I'm not against it, Aziz, but I don't see it. You yourself was married at one point, I think. And I think you saw some of the same toxic behaviors, correct me if I'm wrong, in your relationship that you're seeing in modern women. And it's not a black thing per se, it's a modern woman thing. What's your take
Exactly.
on that?
That is 100% correct. And it doesn't even matter the culture that they grow in. The environment that breeds a certain mentality is what is like secondhand smoke. It's toxic. Mm-hmm. So the Western idea then becomes Western feminine ideas that women take on. It was sold socially. Now it's really being permeated through social media. That is definitely what affected. So it doesn't even matter if both you and the woman were raised Muslim. Once she gets into a certain age and she gets educated, and then she comes across that Western feminine mind, it comes to a point to saying, hey, the way that you're thinking is old school. It's the 50s. We're not in those days. Right. And this is the way they think, not knowing that the new world is actually built on all of the foundations that was established in the old world. But we're trying to get rid of the foundation, and us getting rid of the foundation of what determines manhood, femininity, relationships, etc., is what's causing all of these corruptions. And like you said, yes, I was married, and I gave birth to daughters. But the thing is that the idea of this society, it infected them negatively.
It did. I totally agree. Right. It's now just being a basic man is seen as toxic. Just a father being executing expectations in the home. They'll say you're toxic. A man said, look, I'm the leader of this house. I'm going to make the rules that's going to benefit this family. They want what's called mitches. I'm not going to say the word, but you know what a mitch is. If you can read between the lines, you know what a mitch is. And so they don't want masculine men. They want mitches. They want men that will tap dance and do what they tell them to do. And they want egalitarian relationships where the man and the woman both are leading. And most masculine men know it can't be two captains of a ship. Somebody got to lead. Somebody got to follow. But as I said before in the past, Aziz, if she have his 6, which is his back, then he's going to have her 6. And what women don't understand is that when you protect the ego of a man, which is his honor, respect, and dignity, then he will protect you as it relates to physical protection, love, chivalry, and also putting his life on the line. And that's why so many men are saying, listen, I need a woman that can be an oscillator for me. I need a woman that can be an aphrodisiac, a woman that can spray the essence of femininity on my psyche and on my soul so that I can go out here and win this race of attrition. Because many men tend to die off early. Men die off earlier than their women do to stress and due to lack of cooperation. But, like the wine that said, bring back the days of yay and nay, they were singing that back in the 80s. Bring back the days of yay and nay. I don't see it happening in our lifetime, man. I just don't see it. I'm not being a pessimist. I'm very optimistic by nature, but I am a realist too. And pragmatism.
Can I ask you
yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Something so I've been here for a little bit, and I've met quite a few Black American women that have diabetes, and I know a few that have actually passed before their husbands. Like in terms of what I've seen here, I remember going to a festival in, I think it's Piedmont Park, and I saw like very fit guys, and I didn't see that with the women. Do you think that that's going to be changing when you go to the gym? it is black men, and then the one odd black women here and there. But I do see wives in there with their husbands.
Right.
But you don't think that's slowly changing? I find
I think
black
it's
men
changing. I think the
yeah.
women are beginning to go to the gyms more. Black women are.
No, what I mean is black men are going to outlive black women the way it's going.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's an excellent question, Sweet Lulu Bean. I think black men are beginning to become more health conscious. I know I am. You know, I got a bike. I pay over $2,000 for it. I need to start riding, and I begin to be more expeditious in being health conscious. After this show, I'm going to walk about 5 or 6 miles because I love to do it. I love to walk because it helps recalibrate my mind. But you are correct. I think brothers are beginning to focus on their health. I think brothers are beginning to do what's best for them because I think a lot of our men are concerned that it's only a small remnant of good women that really has our best interests. You know, I did a show last night that was pre-recorded called it's SYSBM to do mutiny. And as I said before, Sweet Lulu Bean, that needs drive behavior. William Glasser was a contemporary of psychoanalytic theory as it relates to men getting their needs met. And many men are beginning to say, you know what, I'm going to do what's best for me, because when you look at the last election, many felt that many of our women did not vote for the advancement of the black family, the black community, but they voted for themselves. They voted for policies that were not more or less beneficial, because as I said, that there are 7 steps to male optimization, and politics is one of them. And they felt like that many of our women did not vote for the advantageous nature of black men and black women being unified with policy, not candidates, policies that are sustainable for black men and black women, the black family, and the black community. And many felt that many of our women did not vote for policy. They voted for their own self-interest. And because of that, a lot of black men are beginning to say, okay, yeah, we saw what's going on, and now we're going to vote for ourselves. And we're going to start focusing on what we can focus on as it relates to finding a remnant of women that can help us take it to the next level. And it's unfortunate, but you know, Yaziz is you hear what Yaziz is saying, but you know, Yaziz saw. What's your take on that, brother?
That's very true. I mean, I have 4 brothers and 5 sisters from my mother and father, right? And my sisters, like you said, they were excited about. They were excited when they vote. They vote based on their emotions. They based on what was put in front of them. They voted for the show. They voted for the emotions and the show and the image of the show. They didn't vote for the reality or the idea. When I was telling them, hey, I mean, I know we don't like this one candidate, but this one right here, this one, they pulling the wool over you. You know what's interesting, Coach, when we speaking about you don't see it in your lifetime, right? Very interesting. Most of the brothers that I grew up with, right? Most of them, if they are in a relationship and are married, the very interesting thing I know, and I can count about 6 or 7 of them. One is married to a woman from Sierra Leone. My brother's married to a woman from Zimbabwe. Yeah, another's married to a Jamaican woman. Another one of my brothers is 2 of my brothers got with women one from Brazil, one from Belize. Yeah, and all of them that have married these women, these women became their inspiration, and that propelled them to now Greatness. Become serious about life, become serious about what they're doing, building a house for the family, etc. But I can go to each one of them, their prior relationship. There was always times they were coming back and had to have a sit down, and we had to have a talk, this and that, and share point of views, because they were going through so much. But the moment that they no longer dealt with, only one of my brothers is with a woman from America, but it just so happened that she's from in the middle of Alabama. Right. You know, and that's almost like that's the closest you can get to finding a woman that has a sense of that home culture. Not saying that they don't exist, but the chance to find them is slim, almost to none, because of this idea.
Right. And that's why I get mad at these people that say, you know, they think the men that travel abroad are lames. You can't get women. You know, you're socially awkward, and that's a myth. It's a huge myth. Are there some socially awkward men? Yes. Do some of the Gen X, it's not Gen X, millennials don't have proper social skills and things? Sure, that's a portion, but we cannot say that every person in that cohort is complicit with being socially awkward, don't have game, don't know how to talk to women. What I'm seeing, Aziz, is this: with some, regardless of what you have, regardless of what you give them, it's still the same old adage. Like Jeffrey James Ingram says, "I gave my best, but my best was never good enough." It was never good enough. He was saying that back in the 80s. And many men are saying it even more so now. It's never enough. I can give you the house on the hill, it's not enough. I can buy you new furniture, it's not enough. Whereas women from other cultures are honorable. They're grateful because one, some of them grew up in abject poverty, some, not all. But also they have honors. They have an honor culture where they honor their father and they honor the men in their community. In some cultures in Colombia, the women are actually raised to honor the husbands and the brothers because they know if she protect his six, which is honoring him as a man and respecting him, he's going to protect her six as it relates to protection. It's a transaction. But see, many times some of our women say they want protection, Aziz, but they're not willing to give anything in return. Relationships are transactional. If you give to me, I'm going to give to you. It's a symbiotic relationship. But because many of our women suffer from what Tasha K suffered from, is having narcissistic traits, she sees her own self-interest as only the most important thing. And because of that, so many men have more or less had low self-esteem based on seeing themselves as less than. There are so many great men that are listening. There are a lot of good brothers that in other areas or other countries, they will be seen as diadems. They will be seen as jewels. Because they'll be seen as pearls of great cost. And the fact remains that the reason why we're having these discussions, Aziz, is that black men do love black women. Because apathy is a sign of indifference. The opposite of hate is indifference, like Iwapo said. And, the fact that we're having these conversations means that black men still are hopeful, but the ship is beginning to sail in opposite directions. Many men are beginning to see that they have inherent worth, that they have virtue, that they should be loved and respected. And they're trying to go places where they're celebrated instead of being tolerated. That celebration can be a manifestation of them focusing on themselves. That celebration also could be a manifestation of them saying, I'm going to build myself up until I find my gem, because men are looking for gems. They're looking for uncovered gems, women that are willing to get with their program and women that are willing to respect them as men. Because men, you have a lot to lose once you get the ring. Men die off earlier in general, especially black men, than any other ethnic group. And some of it because black men don't take care of our health. We don't see the importance of health. But I think black men some are beginning to come full circle about health, working on themselves, loving themselves, and getting with women that are going to give them the outcomes that are best for them and their long-term sustainability. Sweet little bit, I'm going to ask you a question, dear. I talked about it earlier about Tasha K perhaps projecting based on the principle of colorism. Aziz and Sweet Little Bean, what's your guys' take on that? And Bodacious Lady, you give them some good comments. If you would like, please come up and add to the conversation. You've been saying a lot of powerful things about the importance of therapy. So please add to the conversation. If you would like, come up on the panel. Let's join me, Sweet Little Bean, and Aziz. But what's your take on Tasha K projecting because of regression and also projecting because of colorism? What's your take on
that? Kasha, to tell you the truth, I came across colorism when I came to America. So it's something that I'm still trying to wrap my head around. It's a concept I don't understand, and that I can't relate to. So I don't know, Aziz, when you were in the South, in the SADC region, was colorism a thing down there? I don't know. I can't speak to colorism.
To a certain, from what I can understand, to a certain extent, meaning that
there's tribalism.
Well, the thing is that
men, colorism.
Yeah, here we call them red bones, and in South Africa they call them yellow bones, right? And so the men, the image of lighter, fair, it kind of permeates everywhere. I don't care where you go. Even if you in Zimbabwe, you have the colored community. When they see a light-skinned girl who's built like like the other African woman, they'd rather have the lighter skin than the darker skin. But when we talk about colorism, we're talking about, for instance, I have two sisters that are a year and a half, almost 2 years apart. One is dark skin like my mother, and the other is light skin, a little lighter even than my father, and she's very light, like almost high yellow. They went to elementary school and middle school together. The sister that's elder, who's dark skinned, she experienced the boys always giving my younger sister attention. And she's equally as beautiful, but she noticed giving attention, to which made her feel like she was less than, to the point to where it affected her mentality about herself. And then what that did in turn is cause her to want to make sure that when she produced children, that she have lighter children. She didn't like being dark. She felt she was always, not that she felt, but she also stated that she was teased and picked on for being dark. And that also goes back to culture, the show that you did last time dealing with the F&F boys. And then now I just saw something last night where the same girl that they kicked off have a lot of tweets of where she was actually bashing dark-skinned girls.
The hypocrisy.
Asian dog.
Right.
The
Asian dog,
hypocrisy,
right.
exactly. So she was saying dark-skin this and dark-skin that. So colorism is huge amongst our community. Matter of fact, I'm going to go back to the classic movies that Spike Lee did, the wannabes versus the jigaboos. The dark-skinned girls were called the jigaboos and the light-skinned girl was called the wannabes. And so colorism exists in our culture, and that goes back to William Lynch. It goes back to slavery. It goes back to who was the master's children versus who were closer to be coming from Africa genetically. And we look down, African booty scratcher. If you were dark skin, if you were lighter skin, that means that you can get a pass, you know? So that's very heavy, you know, within our communities. And it definitely affects us greatly, even as men. There was a time where, you know, dark-skinned brothers really weren't in the 60s, 70s. Like you had to look like Billy D. Williams and Minister Farrakhan. But then when you got towards the 90s, Khalid Muhammad started coming on the scene, and the darker brothers, all of a sudden it's like Morris Chestnut. The darker brothers, they're in style.
They're in style. I remember.
Drake and Chris Brown trying to fight it, but the dark-skinned brothers, they still winning.
Right, that dark chocolate, man. That chocolate with the sun drip, melon and popping, man. Yeah, they love that, man. And the sad good thing is, man, you know, the dark skinned brothers are actually getting love universally. You know, they're getting love not only from lighter skinned women, but they're getting it universally. Karan, how you doing, brother? How would you like to add to the discussion about the undiagnosed madness associated with women like Tasha K, Cardi B, and also the regressive nature that Tasha K is exhibiting?
Oh yeah, peace and blessings to you, Coach, and everyone on the panel. You know, I contributed earlier in my comment. I said about a strange woman. Me, I was raised in the South, and you in the Tar Heel State, just like I am.
Oh, no doubt. We got to chop it up, man. We got to chop it up, bro. I got to meet you. Right. Chop it up.
And you know, listening to this, I will follow it for a while too when the lead attorney was speaking on it and everything. You know, I usually don't keep an ear, you know, up with the guys because I didn't know who Tasha K was till a few months ago. That's something she was doing. Right. But you know, when I heard what was going on with her, when I heard how she was slandering Cardi B's name, this was something that brought back memories because I was used to seeing this. I was used to seeing that some women, let's say example, a quick story. You know, I was always taught if you go out to a party or something, be careful who you go out with, because the folks you go out will set you up, right? And what this reminds me of is a case of where two women set up a man to get robbed, and essentially one girl get jealous of how much money the other one got and try to turn coat on the other girl. Right. These are two women who have built careers off of being destroyers of men. And that's what I said in my comment. And these women have lit Cardi B and Tasha K, like I said, using their mouths as tools of destruction. Again, that's what I mentioned, you know, Proverbs 5, the strange woman. You know, they say you sound sweet, but it has a bitter end to it. And what Tasha K did to Cardi B is essentially, you know, show her nature towards another woman. She did to Cardi B what she can do to a man, but because Cardi B is a woman and she's being heralded by feminism, well, then they can't have that. And since Tasha K made her such a big target and on this platform, you know, she was easy pickings for Cardi B to come at her in that way. Right. And neither one of these women are good examples of what women should strive to be. But we live in a society that uplifts this behavior that both of them share. One tearing out with their mouth, and the other one that's Tasha K. The other one being Cardi B, which is inspiring women to basically be Jezebel in a sense,
Right.
you know.
Powerful.
And you know, and what happens is, Malcolm X said, if you listen to the, I believe it was Malcolm X, attribute this quote to, if you listen to the news, they have you believe in the victim as a perpetrator, and the perpetrator is the victim. And in this instance here, even though Cardi B has been wronged by the lies of Tasha K, which is wrong, they're still not good people. It's a case where both are wrong, but one's more wrong than the other one. But yeah, I've seen it before. And growing up in the South, you know, I've seen light skin versus dark skin. I've seen, you know, the jokes that get made, the preference that happens, the brown paper bag test. I grew up with it my whole life. I've seen things my whole life. So I do believe that has a role to play in it, what Tasha K did. But this is a case of, you know, two bad individuals getting into a case and one being caught doing something wrong to another, you know, bad individual.
Right. Karan, you're in North Carolina, right? Are you in RDU or Charlotte?
Oh, say again, sir.
Are you in the RDU area or are you in Charlotte?
I'm RDU.
Oh, you're in RDU? Okay, cool. We got to link up, man.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah, we definitely got to link up, man. When you think about the mental illness permeating this culture, man, do you think Tasha K got some undiagnosed mental illness in your opinion?
Absolutely.
Tell me
there's no way a person can be healthy within themselves and set out every day with great pleasure to undo someone else. You can't be healthy mentally and do that. And that kind of behavior is heralded. It's just going to sound messed up. I saw memes. And I, you know, went to high school in the country. You know, if I'm over Lenore County, I went to high school in that area.
Oh, Lenore, yeah.
Right. And there were memes where, you know, you can tell, and the meme said you can tell when black girls come to the cafeteria because it smells like Takis and soda, and it gets loud all of a sudden. And I'm like, man, that's messed up, right? But the thing of it is that's true. This society applauds disruption and applauds the disruptive behavior of black women to their own detriment, to the point where they'll be loud and destructive even until it hurts them and towards other people too. And I see that, you know, I see it growing up, and I see it with the Tasha K situation. You're going at someone for what? For clicks, for views. You're cutting off your nose despite your face. And even as you were playing the video with the attorney, as the brother was describing, on the stand, she was incriminating herself even more, and then doubling down even more so on being wrong. So there's definitely something wrong. There's definitely a disconnect and a lack of accountability and understanding the gravity of the situation she's put herself in.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate. Shout out to Top Gun for the super stickers to Jukebox Plus. Beauty is skin deep. I totally agree. I think all shades of women are beautiful. But you know, Karan, I don't know how old you are, brother. You know, you sound like you're a millennial.
Oh, I'm 35.
Okay, you're a millennial. When you traverse across the kaleidoscope of this culture called America, what percentage of the women would you say are actually from your anecdotal experience? That's your anecdotal experience. But what percentage, whether it be black or white, Latino or whatever, would you say are wife ready? Starting with the nation first, but then I want you to be specific as it relates to your own ethnic group. Starting with the nation, what percentage would you say are wife ready?
With the nation, you do good to get a good 15 to 20%.
Okay.
And that's being gracious.
Okay. All right. What percentage would you say are wife ready as it relates to women of our own ethnic origin?
Oh, 5 to 10%. 5 to 10% of the ADOS. And the reason why I say that is not only anecdotally what I've seen, but I've listened to brothers such as yourself, Attorney Dennis Sperling, brother, B.J. more other men of the black manosphere. While taking my journey, we now call it the red pill journey. You know, everyone gets to their moment when they get pulled into it. When you really want to seek the truth. I call myself a student of the truth because the truth is going to take you places you never imagined, but you have to be willing to have your ideals challenged. And I saw through research, looking at those research and information, and researching on my own, how black women never really belonged to black men in terms of ADOS, our history. Our women were never really our women. And even going back to the Moynihan report, you can see where after really slavery ended, and even with the voting rights, when we can get voting rights, you can see black women that had no problem coalescing their desire on those who will get them what they wanted, right? even if it was contrary to the black men. Even Frederick Douglass, he was shocked by the comments of Susan B. Anthony and others, and how they looked down on black men, saying, you Negroes shouldn't get the right to vote first. We white women should have the right to vote. And black women were so thirsty for the right to vote, they kind of roll with those white women to a degree. And as you see through American history, it makes sense that we would have such a low rate of women ready to marry now, because a woman was never been ours. If they'd never been ours, at what point can we truly say women, our women, ADOS women, have been taught, hey, these are your men, follow them, uplift them, versus these are men, but your power is with the system, and your man is your competitor. So beat him and rely on us. And I think that's what they have been incentivized with, and been incentivized to do it and have done, which has led to such a low wife ready rate now in ADOS in the black community.
Powerful.
Right. And you know, I think you saw with this last election, man. I mean, Aziz talked about it earlier. You know, anytime you use an icon like Cardi B, not to more or less veer too much off topic, but certain political groups use Cardi B as the speaker of black people. You tell me anywhere in any culture, a woman that more or less exudes the negative nature of Cardi B will be allowed to speak to represent black people or people of the African diaspora. A woman that some would say can barely put together a sentence. But you use her, you let her be the voice or the mouthpiece for the greater collective of descendants of slaves. And then this goes back to show you, man, that we just live in a very chaotic culture. You said it, Karan and Aziz, that the quality that men have to go through to get to quality is slim to none. It sounds like to me, Karan, that you don't have any kids, correct?
I do. I do have two children.
Two kids, right?
You know, and I'm blessed to have their mother. Unfortunately, you know, she passed on.
Okay, I'm sorry to hear that.
But yeah, I have two wonderful children. And I let them not listen to the broadcast like this, but I let them listen to hear real history. I let them listen to the truth in the world they deal with now, because they have to be exposed now to keep from being indoctrinated with the madness that is, right? The example you gave with Cardi B, Joe Biden sat there and interviewed and talked with her. One thing I learned is power doesn't move by accident. And she wasn't chosen to speak on behalf of black women by accident. And the fact that so many black women sat there and rolled with that, not even realizing what that power move was that he said. He was telling them, to me, you all are no more than her. And what is she?
Exactly. I totally agree. What is she? Right. You know, no more than the hot sauce comments that were made. But I want to address what Haley Adams said, you know, because I do respect her position, but I think that's foolishness to some degree. I do respect her position. But she said other men fight for their women, but black men want black women to fight for them. And I don't see that correlation, because black men have been fighting for black women since the inception of being in this country, from the Revolutionary War to World War I to World War II to Medgar Evers to Dr. King to Malcolm X to Jim Crow racism. Black men have been fighting for black women since we got here. So when people make that comment, and I do respect the young lady, I respect her position. Other men fight for their women, but black men want black women to fight for them. I don't see the correlation, because on the opposite side, it appears that a lot of our women are not fighting for us as it relates to respecting us as men. How many men do you know that are in a relationship, Aziz, starting with you, that you had to fight for your authority and fight for your masculinity in your home? You should have never had to fight for your masculinity in your home. Sweet little bean, you're from a culture where men don't have to fight for order. The women just know to fall in line and respect their men. So what do you guys would like to say to Ms. Adams? Because I do want to respect her, but it sounds crazy in my opinion. But what do you say to that, Solomon, Aziz, and Karan?
And this is about fighting. You're speaking of in the relation of fighting for position with a woman.
I don't know. She said that other men fight for their women, but black men want black women to fight for them. And what Haley don't understand, white men are beginning to say the same thing. People don't understand this is not a black man thing.
It's not a black thing.
This is a Western issue where white men are beginning to say enough is enough. You know, in some parts in India, they begin to say, the Indian men are beginning to say enough is enough. So I don't see the correlation because black men traditionally have always fought for our women. How many other ethnic groups of men do you know that call their women queens? How many? You don't hear white men calling their women queens. You don't hear Indian men calling their women queens. But our women, not all, shout out to the good sisters that are listening, accosted black men in this last election because they did not vote for the black family. They didn't vote for policies for the black community. Not talking about candidates, I'm talking about policy. Policy. But they voted for themselves. They voted for the illusion of power instead of actually getting true power, which is tied to thinking errors based on the premise of magnification. The magnification of self-worth at the minimization of the black man. What's your take on that?
Yeah, we're going to fight for anything that benefits us. If you try to take away anything that's beneficial to us, then at that point we're going to fight for it because it benefits us. It's good for us. But when it's not beneficial to us anymore, why should we continue to fight for something that's not beneficial? Like very simply put, when you deal with social Darwinism and all the social constructs, psychology and everything else, philosophies, ideologies, the European race, they took control over all ideas and they put themselves as the image and the idea of truth, not only in religion with an image of God and Jesus, but also when it comes down to authority over medicine, authority over psychology, authority over education. They put themselves as the head, as when they speak, it's authoritative. Whereas when it comes down to us, we're not viewed in the same manner. Our words, like you have this show, if you were a European speaking the way that you were speaking kosher, your show will be, it'll be gone. Matter of fact, they'll treat you like they treat, what's that other guy named?
Jordan Lee Peters.
Yeah,
I totally agree with you 100%, man. Listen, you said it 100%. I heard people say it all the time. We don't value the things that's going to add sustainability for the mind. I know that I'm underrepresented. I know that I don't get nowhere near the support that I should get based on what I'm giving. But that's why I say enjoy for now, because a lot of this stuff will start going on Patreon. But you're 100% correct. I've heard people say it all the time. That your channel should be way bigger and you should get more support from your people. But our people don't endorse anything. And I'm going to say this too. The young lady said about support, but watch this. How many black men went to college and graduated and they got no support from the women in their communities? They didn't get support. Yeah. I graduated from college. I went to one of the best schools in the country. Barely got support. How many brothers that are listening actually got support and praise from their women when they graduated? Because see, this is what I see, guys, a lot of time. Not all of our women, but many of our women saw us as competition. And they saw us as the enemy, which we never were. And many of them were competing against us because many thought that they were oppressed by black men. As I said earlier, black men never had the power to oppress our women. We never had the power because we were mused too. We were mused with the same cause. And so, how many brothers have went to school and done well, but how many women supported them? There was a book by the name of these guys called The Three Doctors. They said they were doctors, but guess what? They said when they graduated, they said nobody supported them. Nobody came to their rescue. They went to only go to law, become PhDs in medicine. But they said they got no support, even though we tend to support things that are contrary to the building of our families and communities. But we say we want black men protection, but we don't even support and honor our men in the communities. But we want black men to protect us or protect our women. It's a transaction.
Yeah, I'm a dual degree holder, and every time I say that to a sister, she looks at me like I got two heads. And what I work in the tech field, and when I tell them what I do and how I do, in my path to getting where I am, they look at me perplexed. Like, oh man, I can't believe you did that. The only woman I genuinely supported me that actually let me out was my mother, and that was it. Other than that, that was it. That was it. And it's just amazing to me how that comment could be made as if, like I said, black men have fought for black women since we've been here.
Right.
How many other groups of men come home to a nation that has no statues of them erected? Or have, how many statues of men come home from wars, from being maimed that they didn't want to be in, and are basically treated as if they're the scum of the earth, and they still choose a legal system over them? how many men can tolerate the disrespect that we have as black men? It is so pervasive in this society that it's almost a given, like breathing, that we will receive disrespect from our own women because of how society operates. And you say to us that because we breathe, we should somehow kowtow to you, as if to chase after black women or pursue black women. And black men do, to the degree to our own detriment, as a matter of fact. To our own detriment. Black men yield their power so often, so easily. It's like blinking our eyes, we don't even know it. We have to be untrained. I know I had to be untrained to stop yielding my power by default to black women when I talk to them or dealt with them, because you're so heavily ingrained in you, right? So when that person made that comment, no insulting, not insulting them, but that's an odd comment to make, because black men have always fight and have always fought for black women to the point where we'll harm ourselves, to elevate them or help them. So that's an odd comment to make. The black men don't fight for black women. I see that all the time. I see brothers do it all the time. I see brothers. That's the odd thing, Coach, to hear that, right? Because it fires me up a little bit. Cause I know there are men who have worked themselves to death, to give their family a means, or to want to have something for their family, and to say that black men don't fight for black women. That's something else to help.
Well, it's sad, man. And thank you, Awesome Dre. Awesome Dre made the comment. He said the coach Clinician is 3 times smarter than Dr. Phil. Yeah, he has barely over 50 live views. This is unacceptable. And I agree. It goes back to what I was saying earlier. We like salacious stuff. We don't like things that are good for the soul, the mind, and the body. We like goofy stuff. We like drama. We like entertainment. We don't like things that more or less empower us as people, only when we're in crisis. And, I had to fight through so many pitfalls and jump to so many hills, because I've always felt, brothers, that there was always an attack. One, because I am 6'5", 2, I'm highly educated, and they always saw me as a threat. I understood the threat coming from other ethnic groups of men, but I never understood the threat coming from women that look like me, because they want black men to be inferior, some of them to them. They want black men to cowtail, tap dance, kiss their behinds. And, black men are saying they're not going to do it. I could easily start a channel where I talk about goofy stuff, gossip, and, stuff that's going to, what I call junk food. But things that are more or less pertinent to the sustainability of our families and our communities, we don't want to hear about stuff like that. And so it is what it is. I take it with a grain of salt. I know what my worth is, but like I was saying, Karan and I both went through the same thing. I remember a time when I was going to grad school, when I was going to school in general, and many times you're correct, didn't get the support at all. Even in church many times didn't get it, because they saw you as an object of their own insecurities. And so a lot of times it's about power and the need to make you feel less, because when you shine brightly, then they can't handle it. So I know what my worth is, and that's why I always advocate for support. But you're correct. Smaller groups of men get way more support, don't have nowhere near the educational acumen that I have, but we don't get, as black men, the support that we deserve. And it's unfortunate. That's why I tell people to share this content, to donate to the challenge, because these shows are extremely time consuming, as I'm about to pop off in a few minutes. But that's why we have these shows. Haley Adams said that then black women fight with black men for civil rights. Well, Haley, I would say that black women in part, at one point, were fighting with their men in part. But there were also women that were fighting against their men, because black women have always had a desire, in my mind, to be like their white predecessors. They wanted to share power. The white man was an icon of power. So some of our women, not all, sided with white liberals to say that black men were oppressing them based on domestic issues that were not necessarily endemic to black people, but was endemic to all ethnic groups. White men were complicit in domestic issues, no different than Indian men and any other men. Some of it is due to trauma, some of it is due to circumstantial reasons that cannot be explained. But we always equivocate black men as bad, violent, don't take care of their kids. But we don't look at the good things that black men have done on a cohesive level, like defending the country, putting their lives on line. How many black men have gone to jail for the love of a woman? How many have lost their lives for the love of a woman? So I take great umbrage when you say that black men don't fight for black women. Black men, the fact that we're having this conversation is a fact that we're fighting.
Can I say this real quick, Coach? Can I say this real quick? All of us black men, just like black women, all believe the same idea that was published, especially if you grew up in our generation. we believe that black men were abusive and black men did this and black men did that. But then nowadays, people are now bringing out the statistics. Almost 30% of men over 18 are virgins. 60% of black men are without child and are unmarried. 80% of divorces are caused by black women. When you start seeing the statistics, you have to ask yourself the question, hold on, why did I think that way? Who taught me these things? When you look at black women, yes, they fought for black rights, right? But at the same time, when someone can actually see, you know, when a victor defeats you, and I'm only saying this because of slavery, when a victor defeats you, he leaves you in a position to always be defeated. The only threat to another race of man is another man,
right,
who can genetically annihilate him. So then what happens, the only threat to a white man is not a white woman or a black woman, it's a black man, because that's another man. That's another kind of lion in his home. So the only way to keep him in a position is that you got to prevent him access economically. It's not like they won't let a few through, but you got to prevent access. But in order to also prevent that access, you have to say, hey, in this fight, now when the woman gets educated, she's not educated and totally being taught about Dr. Kingian philosophies and these ideologies. She's taught about feminists and great women and what they've done. So she's opted into the female thing because she's a female, and it's irregardless of race. But that becomes a detriment to the black community because she's black first before she's white, because the white woman was given the right to vote after women's suffrage, whereas black people didn't get the right to vote, which means the black woman still couldn't vote. But they don't see it that way.
And you know, I want to respond to Haley, and I respect Haley. She said the back and forth between black men and black women is getting old. The finger pointing would not change anything. But the fact is, Haley, is this: until our women and your women are willing to look within themselves and more or less hold themselves accountable, then we will continue this war. Listen, before there can be peace, Haley Adams, there must be war. It's not that, you know, black men are just trying to fight for the sake of arguing for the sake of whatever. Black men by nature, all men want peace. It's not even a black thing, it's a man thing. They want peace. But what men are saying is that, you know what? Sooner or later, we're just going to stop talking. We're going to walk away. Because as I said earlier, when you look at politics, many of our women, I would say more than 80%, voted for policies that were not beneficial to the black family or the community. So how can we say that the back and forth between black men and black women is getting old, but many of our women are not willing to look at themselves? Many of our women are not willing to say, I've been a victim of liberal policies that have been detrimental to the black family and the black community. So this war will continue until our women look at within themselves. The men got to look within themselves as well and say, is it worth me continuing to fight for someone that doesn't have my best interest as a man? Men are beginning to say that as well. They're saying that my love is not necessarily reciprocated. Because like I said, I don't see any other ethnic group of men calling their women queens. White men don't do it. Latino men don't do it. Asian men don't do it. And neither do Indians. How many guys you know any other ethnic groups calling their women queens? I don't know it. I don't know it because black men know that from a historical basis that we both were in the same struggle. But a lot of men are realizing that our women don't always, a percentage of our women don't always have our best interests. And that's why a lot of brothers are saying, you know what, let's stop the argument. Let's do what's best for us, because you're correct, Awesome Dre. You got a licensed therapist that went to one of the best schools in the country. And many times we don't care about stuff that's sustainable for our heart and our mind. We like junk food. You know, the lead attorney, he used to do a lot of good work with trying to empower men. But only when he had to change his method up a little bit that he started getting people watching. It's almost like you have to get salacious stuff in order to get our people in tune. We like to be entertained instead of being educated. What's your take on that? Then I'm going to end the stream in a minute.
I'll say it first, Coach. I'm up off. I appreciate having me up here. To that point there, I think one reason why a lot of men, I'll say this boldest statement, that a lot of argumentative behavior and habits are in men, or should I say, I'm going to cut the woman out of the argument since the sister mentioned that, Sister Haley mentioned that. I'm going to focus on the men when I say this. When black men get fully healthy, focus on themselves, mind, body, and spirit, and put themselves first and focus on their purpose, the likelihood of them picking someone from the United States or Western world drops by 70%. Because a healthy, aware individual will understand I cannot cast my pearl before swine. And that's what is being asked of quite a few brothers. Cast your pearl before swine because your daddy did it, your granddaddy did it, and your great granddaddy did it. And we want to use you simply as a resource. They're not calling them hogs, but the behavior is similar. I want to eat you and consume you for my own good and throw away whatever I don't like. And what happens is they do the same thing with their sons, which is why you have so many argumentative men. They groom boys to be the men they always wanted. The problem is the men that always wanted are problematic. Therefore, you end up having generations of problematic men, spawning a lot of arguing, spatting, and fighting. And we have now is the men who are arguing with you are the ones who are trying to stay. But they have to get out of that habit and realize what's best for me. And what's best for them is to heal oneself and then hit that exit.
It is powerful. Sweet Lulu Bing, you've been a little silent. Quran is dropping some bombs.
What between K-Rod and Aziz? Like, listen, bow at their feet, both men. In terms of Haley, Haley for me is coming with that equality mindset. When she says that black men want black women to fight for them, if we go back, my mom was in the armed struggle. My mother was an activist, gun carrying and everything, had to leave South Africa because the police were after her, went to jail. But my mother was under the tutelage of men. So my mother wasn't the fight, and that's what African American women don't understand. The civil rights movement wasn't your fight. Is Dr. Martin Luther King.
I see your point, right?
And so my mind is so there's just so much history. The Marcus Garveys, the Malcolm X's. There were so many men who headed those organizations, and the women and the children were under the fold. So black women, like I said, get it out of your mind that you are fighting with, that it was an equal fight. It was never an equal fight because we as women and children don't have the strength that men have, that we were the support system for that fight. I don't know if I'm making sense.
No, I totally understand what you're saying.
Great point.
I see your point. You're right. You're saying they're coming from an egalitarian construct, saying we were equal in power and equal in struggle. What you're saying is that it was your responsibility to uplift your man as he helped you fight. Because if you helping him fight, then inevitably it's going to benefit you. But if you see the struggle as a struggle of individualism, like we're doing it as Batman and Robin, instead of saying I'm the upholder of my man and my community, then the battle is not yours. The battle was his. You were just beside him to help him fight the battle, instead of seeing it seen as an individualistic struggle where we both are equal in this struggle together, like we're fighting together, like we're like me and Quran are fighting together for freedom. And so I see what you're saying, sweetie. I get it.
So that's where we have to get out of this mindset in terms of the fights that we've had to fight. We weren't fighting in the same vein as men were fighting. And then again, Haley also needs to understand that the black man has been removed from the household for a very long time. And that the social ills that we are seeing in the black community is because of that single black woman. She's done a lot of damage. But we still want to blame a man who wasn't there. How do you blame a man that didn't raise you? How do you understand what I'm saying? That wasn't in the house. You are a byproduct of that woman.
Right.
And there was one time I was listening to Aziz. I don't know if you can remember. He made a good example. Also, the black man is not only is fighting the black woman as a whole. He's fighting his daughter. He's fighting his mother. That's the first woman that he's got to fight.
Right.
And
I totally agree.
You understand?
Yes,
so
ma'am, right.
Haley doesn't understand how deep the fight is that women have waged against their men. She doesn't understand the type of enemy we have become to our men. But going back, Aziz had a nice point. He has got a way of just wrapping what I wanted to say, where you made you made the point, Aziz, where you were talking about black men and rap. Tupac, Biggie, and all these relationships. How many times have black men spoken about the mothers and the relationships
Yeah.
that they had them with their mothers? I
I said
mean,
on another channel, I was like, Biggie was like, his mother, GED wasn't BIG. I got PARD, so that's why my moms hate me. Even Tupac, he would say, me and my mother had beef at 17 years old. I was kicked out in the street. DMX was like, I got in so much drama with my mama. I got on some fly shit, and I said that I'm going to be that seed that don't need much to succeed. So these men were always constantly having issues with their mothers, and that's what actually propelled them to actually explain why they went through so much struggle and had to become the type of boy men that they've become. And it's almost in every rap song.
but then, and those same men, in that same song of Dear Mother, he's still calling his mother a queen, despite the fact that she's a crack fiend, despite the fact that she was neglectful. Which only black men do that.
Only black men do it.
Stand by their mother. American black men will stand by their mother, despite everything that woman has not done for them. So when I hear a person like Haley, it's you are so skewed, Haley. You do not understand that you are not looking at this thing right. And we as women have a lot of responsibility. We're responsible for so much of what's gone wrong, and that's why we don't hear men when men are trying to say that we don't even know what a man needs, Haley, because you still want to be equal. You still want to blame this black man, not understanding what he has had to go through and not understanding the black male experience. So when we listen to the manosphere as women, we think that men are making these demands on us, and what they're saying is, I can't even ask you anything. I can't even ask you to be my wife. I can't even ask you to be my mother. I can't even ask you to listen to my struggle, because you are so busy wanting to be my equal, because you are so busy wanting to blame me for things that are not even my fault. So I think part of the manosphere has to do a whole show really on what black women have done. We've been detrimental to our black community as a whole. And Haley hasn't even scratched the surface of how wrong we are.
And that goes back to what I would call unconscious pathology. And I respect Haley's position. As I told you, many of our women were compromised, Sweet Lulu Bean. Many are saboteurs of their own ignorance. They mean well, but they don't understand the gravitas to how liberal policies have more or less played a role in the destruction of our men. As I said before earlier, you're not going to find another group of men as loyal as men of ADOS descent. To the point, it's been to our own detriment because we put others before ourselves. I agree with what the brother was saying, Awesome Dre said earlier. You would think that you got a licensed therapist in the space. These kind of shows should have no less than 100 folks on stream. But we like goofy stuff. We like goofy stuff, that really has no pertinence to the establishment of our community. That's why when people talk about building the community, saving the community, what are they saving? What is Quran saving?
And then they have this skewed idea of respect, and they have this skewed idea of what male leadership is. A lot of women will only respect a man, Haley, as far as what that man can do for them.
Right.
As soon as that man does not benefit them in any way. So we're the first ones. I respect my man. I will stand by my man. But then talk to that man and ask him, how have you in your eyes as a man, how have I stood by you? How have I respected you? How can you, Haley, decide what respect is for a man? How can you, Haley, decide what leadership is for a man? You can't, because you've never asked a man.
Right. And you know what, Sweet Lulu Bean, you're correct. Many have never, more or less, they don't understand what men want. Many have never taken the time to understand what men want. You see it many times on the wedding day. They make it about her. Exactly. But really, the wedding should be about him. It really should be about her getting ready to serve her man as he protect her and build a legacy. But you talked about some in your culture where the women actually, bow before their men and call them king and respect them and give them great reverence. Most men don't know what it's like to be around a feminine one. They've never experienced it. They will lose their mind if they had a top woman. They will lose their mind. And that's why a lot of men now are beginning to say, you know what, I'm going to start focusing on myself and I'm going to do what's best for me because I'm not getting the love and the adulation that I need. And shout out to my man, ASM supporting black men. He said, brother, what did he say? He said, brother, appreciate your content. Don't change on us. Well, listen, I'm not going to change, but I got to use my time wisely because, you know, these shows are very time consuming. And like I said, I put a lot of heart and time in this content. And I agree with what the people were saying, you know, the support, even though it's good support, it should be way better, you know, based on my profession and my background. But I still say that there's a visceral internalization where many of our women, Sweet Lulu Bean, can't respect wholesome masculine black men because they never seen it, one. And then two, they were raised in matriarchies where the women were conditioned to not respect their men. Many of our women, Sweet Lulu Bean, believe that the women should be ahead because when you hear them saying, honor thy mother and thy father, that's out of order. The gospel says, honor thy father and thy mother. And so many don't even know what true masculine authority look like. And when they see it, they reject it. And you're correct. We're fighting against our children, many times our daughters, because they're fighting, because they're rebellious, because they don't want to adhere to masculine authority. Sometimes our women, they're hard-headed and don't listen. And then you got to fight with some of the men in the community that don't look like us, not all, because they see black men as a threat. So black men have always been in the pressure cooker. We've always been under a lot of stress and distress to the point. That's why many of us die off early, because we got to always fight. But it's getting to a point where a lot of brothers say, I'm not going to fight anymore. I'm going to do what's best for me. Go ahead, brother.
And
I'm sorry.
just one more point, and then I'm going to jump off. Also, we also need a show and an understanding of what submission is, because a lot of women want to call in and say, I am submissive. But the thing is, they have their own understanding of what submission is. They still want to be the ones who decide what submission, what respect, and what leadership of a man looks like. And like I said, it will always go back to what benefits a woman. And that is not how it's supposed to be. Right. So that's why we don't know how to be mothers and we don't know how to be wives. And men are finding themselves backed up against the wall. It's because we still want to decide, like I say, we still want to dictate how men need to be men. So yeah, Haley, you've got a long way to go, sweetie.
Well, like I say, you know, I respect Helen's position. You know,
I respect it too, but it's wrong.
I respect her position. You know, she could be coming from a place of you know, she means well, but she, you know, don't really understand the gravitas of her comments. But I do respect her position.
We don't have the time, Kosha. We really do not have the time to still be coddling. We need to understand where we are, because we are so far gone that we have women like Cardi B and Tasha. And like I said, this is a male space. Men shouldn't have to water down what they have to say to us. If we are wrong, we are wrong. I totally agree. You're right. Haley's coming into a male space. She needs to hear men talk as men.
Right. I totally agree. Many times we do water it down to assuage people's egos and feelings, but you know, I'm like, hell, you know, what am I getting for assuaging? You know, like Dre said, you know, a stream is as important as this. Should easily have 100 people watching, but you know, I'm gonna have to make some changes at some point. You know, make sure my time is.
I might have to call it Kosher Peterson. You know.
Yeah. I have to go, guys.
Okay, all right. We'll talk soon. Thank you, dear.
All right, great wisdom.
Well, I hope to speak to her. I hope to hear from her.
No doubt. I respect Helen. I respect her.
Right here from you.
All right, guys. Listen, real quick, Dre. We're about to sign off in a minute. Any other ladies want to pop on for less than a minute? Please pop on. But we're gonna end the stream in a minute. Karan, real quick, what'd you get from it, brother? In less than 2 minutes.
I got a great deal from it. Again, I appreciate you having me up here. You know, it's something that we live in a day and age where the behavior of women has become so caustic, you know, so toxic, and so well received and celebrated as being such. And you know, and now the cadence going on between these two women, Cardi B. And that, granted, I understand she probably did have some mental distress by what Tasha K said. Those are some salacious accusations. But again, this is a behavior that's not new. You know, and you know, now Tasha K gets to feel what it feels like to be a black man in a sense. And she want to wear them pants, you get to feel that heat when the low come down on you when you in the wrong. And, you know, but my other thing is I'm gonna have to end up developing a YouTube channel myself. I just came with this. As hearing you talk and hearing like Sweet Lulu just said about how black men also have to battle their mothers. I'm gonna have them doing a series about the strange mothers, the same way there are the strange women, right? Because how these mothers have put so much detriment on their sons by putting things on them and emotional burdens on them and emotional drains on them that it really cripples the man they become. Me being a victim of this my own self and having to straighten myself out from it. There are a lot of strange mothers out there, Kosher, and they're doing a great deal of disservice. And that first enemy that their son has to fight is his mother. And even the detriment of even that concept, Kosher, of I have to now fight my mother for my masculinity and my sanity.
Right.
It's crazy.
Right.
It's crazy.
It is crazy, man, that you will have to fight your mother for your masculinity, but also your sanity. And I'm telling men that stop the fight, focus on yourself, and love yourself, and everything else will take care of itself. It just baffles me, sometimes, and I think people mean well, but they come from a place of not knowing or ignorance, because black men are some of the most loyal. I would say we're more loyal than our women are to us. The fact that we're having this conversation once again shows our unbridled loyalty for our women. But I think a lot of men are saying enough is enough. We're gonna start doing us, and that's why movements like SYSBM have more or less been permeating here lately. The show that I did yesterday that I uploaded actually talked about this young Ghanaian brother, Jay Bones, was talking about how black men historically have always defended the honor of the country, but also our women and children. And it hurts a little bit because I think black men are saying the only thing that we have is us, and it's never good enough. Whatever we do is never good enough, and it's not like I say a black thing. It's an American thing. Caustic feminism is not only caused distress with white men, but it's also caused a lot of distress for a lot of men. And so it's unfortunate, it's sad, but it's just the nature of the culture that we live in, unfortunately. And so we just got to continue to fight forward as men. We got to continue to push through. We got to continue to love ourselves, and we got to continue to love the women that support us. The women like the Sweet Lulu Beans, the Miss Parker Back to Basics, and even the women that are willing to learn and try. But you're right; these platforms are platforms that are unapologetically masculine. We're hearing things from a heteronormative, masculine perspective. And like I said, these conversations need to be addressed because there are a lot of pathologies in our community. Hold tight real quick. Shout out to my man, Douglas Somerville. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it, Douglas. He said showing support. Thank you, brother. Much love and blessings. Thank you, brother. I love you for that $9 super chat. Thank you, sir. And Bodacious Lady said I had to check myself when I was raising my son. No doubt, sweetie. I agree with that 100%. MC Recover Weather said he's putting a couple of shows together. While Tasha K might have post-traumatic stress. She right. AP Leo Queen said, I agree my mother influence upon her son can destroy or add value to his future interactions. You're correct. And women really are the nurturers of the man's ego. The woman is the nurturer of the man's ego because the man is imprinted by the words of the woman. And if he feels that he doesn't have the support that he needs, he can implode from within. Real quick, Yaziz, much love and blessings, brother. What did you get from the show? As it relates to the mental pathologies in our community? What'd you get from the show real quick, brother?
Yeah. What I got from the show is that, from the title of the show, dealing with Tasha K and Cardi B, one is really famous, one is a personality on YouTube, that they represent a majority of Black women as far as their thinking process, how they go about doing things, how they think, Both of them are very loudmouth women. I mean, extremely loudmouth women. And of course, I know one is a wine drinker. The other one, we all know who Cardi B is. What I got from this show is that mental distress is a real issue, and a lot of our women are dealing with the mental distress of what they've actually downloaded, and that and also being disconnected from the leadership of their men. Right. And in turn, that also affects us as men, as far as having the quality women that we need that continue to nurture the community in order to cause us to become also who we need to become, because the inspiration and the muse of a woman it does a lot to a man, and what a man decides how he wants to build it, if he wants to build. Because without women, a lot of times we have the nature of it. Men, we could live in the woods with neighbors. We don't need big fancy house because we wouldn't even worry about us in them.
No. I totally agree, man. I totally agree with everything that you're saying. Shout out to my man Pernue. Thank you, brother, for the $10 super sticker. He said thank you for bringing up these crucial issues for Black men. I appreciate that, gents. I appreciate that, brothers. Haley said that white men approved of feminism. It would have been dead in the water had those men not agreed with it. You're correct, Haley, but what does that have to do with black men and black women? Black women joined white feminists. Black men didn't create feminism, but black women did join feminism because they felt that the black men oppressed them, when at the macro level, macro meaning policy, black men never had power to impact policy on the souls and the spirit of our women. We never had the policy to do it. And so know that we had the power because black men and black women historically were muse of the same issue, but because I feel that some of our women were compromised, because they took the narrative that black men were abusive, the black men didn't take care of their children, the black men ran away from their families. They equivocated black men with the struggles of all men. The same things that we equivocated black men with, some white men were doing the exact same thing. White men were abusive. White men sometimes left their families, but white men also did not have to deal with the double burden of Jim Crow racism. But black men always get cast type in a negative light, and it's unfortunate. But I do respect your commentary, Hallie Adams. I appreciate it. Sweet Lulu Bean said that black men fought for all of us, and we as black women and children fought alongside them. They led the fight, and we supported. Black folks as a whole was sacrificed collectively. I agree with you 100%, dear. You're right. Bodacious Lace, Sweet Lulu Bean, I appreciate your amazing insight. You're right. You're right. And you're right, Helen. It is unproductive. But guess what? I agree. That's why the whole gender war is unproductive. I don't think the black men are warring against black women. I think black men are responding to how they've been treated. Our war has never been with our women. Our war has been with the conditions of the maltreatment that we've been getting that's led to it's just based on some of the maladaptive behaviors of our women. But black men have never waged a war against black women. We never have, because we always saw our women as our allies. But I think a lot of black men are becoming frustrated in this fight for trying to regain their masculinity and regain a level of dignity and virtue. Real quick, I think it was Karan. What'd you get from the show, brother? Real quick, I'm gonna sign off.
Oh man, it was great being here. Just hear all these points. We in interesting times, but I believe that we're in the times where men are answering what they feed. Committed, tired of the games. We putting in the work to get better outcomes for ourselves. And I believe SYSBM is in full effect because it has to be. Because if we don't save ourselves, who will?
Right, and it's sad, man. It's very important. It's very sad, But guys, I appreciate everything you guys do. Share the content with like-minded people. I know many times in the black community we tend to minimize the importance of mental health. It's sad. In the white community, they tend to exonerate the importance of mental wellness. We tend to minimize it. We minimize it because we don't understand the importance of it, because mental illness and mental treatments are assigned just like going to a doctor. But our doctor, because of slavery, was Jesus, and also the church, and more or less coming together. But, clinicians are mental health doctors, and psychiatrists are mental health doctors. And until we come together and understand that, it's going to be to ill repute. So share the content only with like-minded people. And you can't find the like-minded people of your own ethnic origin, share with other groups. Start getting other ethnicities in these conversations, man, because it's a shame that our people don't support the things that are necessary. But I have a few good, genuine brothers, some good, genuine brothers that are with the fight. There are some good sisters that are listening to. And we will continue these conversations as we continue to empower the remnant, because I do believe there's only a remnant left. I don't think the greater black community will be saved, sadly. Not only the black community, the American fabric, but we got to continue to inspire those that want to be inspired. So this has been another great show. And I agree that, the platform is definitely necessary, guys. And he's funny. The spirit of the mongoose, no doubt. And like I said, guys, we're going to sign off. And did anybody else have anything want to comment before I sign off? I'm about to sign off.
Again, thank you for this platform. Thank you for the show. Every show, Culture, like I said, I learned something. Like it goes higher and higher. It never ends. One thing adds on to it another.
I appreciate it.
And I just want to say that in so many ways, for the mind, for a listening mind, you're like a professor, because you introduce concepts and then you add to it on the next show, and it keeps building upon.
Right.
And it keep doing it.
But no doubt,
you're doing.
No doubt, man. I know there's some lawyer brothers, man. You guys have shown a lot of support, man. Even though I think it should be more, But I'm so grateful for the brothers that have shown love and support. I appreciate everything you guys have done. Maybe it's the holidays. I don't know. But like I said, man, I'm grateful for everything you guys have done. And you're right, these platforms are necessary for the brothers that want to listen. And so I really appreciate everything you guys are doing. Shout out to my man, D'Angelo Bay. Thank you, brother. I believe that Kosher is a major asset in the YouTube space. Thank you, brother. You know, I'm going to drop some fire for your mind.
Fire for your mind.
And we're going to continue to fight, guys. We are going to continue to fight. We're going to continue the fight of male empowerment, male liberation, and also the mental restructuring of the mind of so many of our men, because so many of our men have been saboteurs of their own ignorance. And we're going to get the message out as we continue this fight for male empowerment, and also as we continue this fight for trying to find those uncovered gems, those percentages of women that are listening, that want to be covered by good, righteous men, and also women that want to be led in the right direction as it relates to family and community. So, guys, thank you once again. We're about to sign off. It's been another great commentary. We will continue to bring you guys great content as we seek to eradicate the mental issues in our community. So thank you, Aziz. Thank you, Karan, man. I love you. Karan, send me your email, brother. Text me your email, man. We can chop it up, man, in the Tar Heel state, the greatest state in the union. So send me your email, Karan, all right? And just email me at kosherclinician@gmail.com, and we'll find the time, man. We'll chop it up. So we're about to sign off, guys. Once again, this has been another classic as we continue to move forth in this 2022 time period. Be well.
4 in the morning, you got me up, all cause you need to talk. To 4 in the evening, wanna break up, say that you've had enough. I'm tired of talking, again and again, argue about everything. You are my darling, this kiss and make up, I know you wanna touch. You call me every night, call me every day, I just wanna get you alone now. Trust me when I say,
who told you that you can rise from the morass of your current situation? Who told you that you had to be a slave to the pain of your past? Who told you that you had to settle for mediocrity in this current culture called America? Who told you that you couldn't change your mind? Talk to me. Now's the time for empowerment. And I'm not the Reverend Knight. I'm the Kosher Clinician.
addicted to you. All of my attention I've been giving to you. Caught up in my feelings, I got feelings for you. Caught up in my feelings, I got feelings for you. On my mind, I can't lie. On my mind, I can't lie. Pull you down till you dry. Pull you down till you dry. All the time, ease my mind. All the time, ease my mind. I know that you're dangerous, I'm addicted to you. I might rent the Lambo and go drive it like it's stolen. I've been living wild, I'm just going through the motions. Stumbling out the Uber, grab my hand, gave me a notion. Swimming in your water, but it feels just like the ocean. I can't lie, I've really been addicted to you. All of my attention I've been giving to you. Caught up in my feelings, I got feelings for you. Caught up in my feelings, I got feelings for you. On my mind, I can't lie.